Check.
Yes, please check the sound first, Mr. Mahali.
Yes, I'm trying. Belum bisa. Sambung.
Prof. Azizi.
Thank you for Master of Ceremony for introducing the speaker, Mr. Rector, UNISNU, Mr. Dean of UNISNU, and it's great honor for us, Mr. Jon Mason. You are the first of the speaker to join with us. And we are still waiting for the next speaker from Malaysia, Mr. Azizi, and we are waiting for the join from Turkey, Mr. Bulent. And also from India, Mr. Kumar. Hope they will join as fast as possible. And pasti terus macam satu sisi kan suara saya katanya cuma faktor kata operasi. Sekarang ke sini jangan ngambil apa yang baca kita.
Audionya efek.
Untuk pembukaan pembicaranya, aku yang
Yang lainnya
That's great. Thank you for your sending the material for PowerPoint. Thank you so much. And then this is a technical thing. We will operate your PowerPoint. So Mr. Ramesh Kumar, just present your material.
Okay.
If you need to say next, just say next.
Okay. Okay.
On the next display, right?
Okay. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And just also, Mr. Jon Mason, great. We also help you to operate your PowerPoint. And then just say next for the moving text and forward, right?
If you want to do it that way, that is okay. Otherwise, I can also do it. But
thank you, Mr. Mason.
Hello, Mr. Tarman. Can we come back to Professor Azizi from Malaysia? That's one of them. Okay.
Okay, so I will give the announcement for the audience of this international conference. The opening of ceremony will start 5 minutes later. So please prepare yourself.
Let me say hello. Good morning, Mr. Bulent Tarman. How do you do? Nice to meet you. That's great. I'm really sorry yesterday you joined us, but I'm not present. Great. Thank you so much for your sending presentation and also material. Thank you so much. And
you're welcome. Thank you. You're
great.
welcome. Thank you.
On the operations of this seminar, we will help you to operate your PowerPoint. Mr. Tarman just present your presentation and we will operate your PowerPoint. Just say next for the next display.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tarman.
Sure.
Hello, Prof. Bulent. That's me. Say hello to you. How are you?
In this present time, there will be already Mr. Jon Mason from Australia, Mr. Tarman, and then Mr. Ramesh Kumar from India. Would you say hello for them?
Sure. Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Tarman.
Good morning. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
It's very nice to meet you too all.
Good morning, Mr. Jon Mason. Good morning, Mr. Ramesh Kumar.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Selamat pagi.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon you. Alhamdulillahirrabbilalamin. Wabihi nasta'in ala umur dunya wa din. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin. Wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'in amma ba'd. The Honorable Rector of Universitas Islam Nahdlatul Ulama Jepara, Indonesia, Mr. Sa'dullah Assa'idi. The Honorable the Dean of Faculty of Teaching Science Faculty, Mr. Mahali. I would like to welcome all distinguished speakers of the international conference today. Dr. Jon Mason from College of Education, Charles Darwin University, Australia. Good morning. Professor Madya, Dr. Noor Azizi bin Ismail, University Sains Islam USIM, Malaysia. Dr. Ramesh Kumar, Ph.D., Indian Institute of Technology, Dhanbad, Jharkhand, India. Associate Professor Bulent Tarman, Ph.D., Gazi University, Turkey. Professor Dr. Teguh Budiharso, Professor in English Language Education, IAIN Surakarta, and Social Studies 2020 with the theme Challenges and Solutions of Teaching Education and Social Studies in Digital Era. All say thanks to our God, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala.
The one that we are waiting for in the hereafter. Salat wa salam to our Prophet Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the one that we are waiting for is in the hereafter. Amin ya Rabbal Alamin. And the first time, we would like to say it's really great honor for us to have the international seminar for the webinar for the first international webinar of teaching education and social studies in InCoTESS 2020. I would like to greet good morning, Mr. Jon Mason. Good morning, Mr. Prof. Madya Noor Azizi Ismail from Malay. Good morning, Mr. Associate Professor Bulent Tarman, Ph.D. from Turkey. Good morning, Mr. Dr. Ramesh Kumar, Ph.D. from Indian Institute of Technology of Japan, India.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Professor Dr. Teguh Budiharso, State Institute of Surakarta, Indonesia. Good morning, Mr. Rector of Nahdlatul Ulama UNISNU Jepara. Your Excellency, for all the keynote speaker and all participants. It's really great honor for us. I would like to also greet for Mr. DRS Mahali M.Pd, the Dean of the Faculty of Teacher Training UNISNU Jepara, all Dean of Faculty of Nahdlatul Ulama UNISNU Jepara, the committee of the first international webinar of teaching education and social science, all lecturers of Nahdlatul Ulama University, all participants of the first international webinar and teaching education all over the world, from Australia, from Canada, from Turkey, from India, from Malay, all invited distinguished participants from all over Indonesia, from Sabah Islands to Merauke Islands. Good morning all. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to, from Indonesia, thank you so much for your participation for this seminar. And it's really a great honor for us to be with you in our first international seminar of teaching, education, and social science conducted by Universiti Nahdlatul Ulama University of Jepara, Indonesia. This seminar, InCoTESS 2020, is an interdisciplinary international webinar that invites academies, the independent scientists, the researchers from all around the world to meet, to exchange the idea, and can discuss the issue around the area of teaching, education, and social studies. And this international webinar will gather the professor, the lecturer, the researcher, and the students from various disciplines to discuss challenges and solutions of teaching, education, social science, and digital tools. The researchers are welcome to attend the webinar and present your work according to the scale given by the committee. We would like to take the opportunity to thank for the participant. Thank you for your participation in the international webinar on this teaching, education, and social science, especially for our special keynote speaker from Australia, Mr. Jon Mason, from Malaysia, Professor Dr. Noor Azizi Ismail, from India, Mr. Dr. Ramesh Kumar, Ph.D., from Turkey, Mr. Associate Professor Bulent Tarman, Ph.D., from Indonesia, from IAIN Surakarta, Indonesia, Mr. Professor Dr. Teguh Budiharso, and also our beloved rector, Mr. Dr. Hajj Abdullah Assa'idi, Master of Islamic Studies, the rector of UNISNU Jepara. And in that, let us give also the gratitude to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. In order that today we can meet and have the webinar, let us pray together for the success of this event. And Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, and also all the honorable ladies and gentlemen, and these are anything that I can see, that I can say and present in this occasion. And once again, I warmly invite you all, ladies and gentlemen, to much use this event.
Webinar this morning. Secondly, peace be upon our manfaat in the day of judgment. Amen. I'm pleased to warmly welcome to the first international webinar on teaching, education, and social studies 2020. Before beginning the webinar, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you who sincerely committed to this event to make it successful. This event will be impossible without the support of each of everyone who joined and present here attending the seminar. The international webinar today is organized and conducted for the general audience to gain insight and information about challenges and key inputs of solution of teaching, education, and social studies in digital era. It is organized by the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teaching Science, one of the faculties in Nahdlatul Ulama Islamic University in Jepara, Indonesia, majoring at education and teaching of Islamic education, English education, preschool teacher education, and elementary teacher education. Ladies and gentlemen, we all understood that innovation in various fields of science has brought about a change in the global society. Despite the great progress, this change also has a negative impact on society and education institutions. The existence of digital technology led to a disruptive era that is rapid innovation as needed become vital. The need for a highly practical digital society is a challenge for all spheres of life, including education. The emergence of digitalization in industrial and economic field, although this opens opportunities, but it also poses a threat to the workforce that will be replaced by artificial intelligence. This is what creates urgency for institutions, including colleagues, to better innovate the advancement of the digital age. Ladies and gentlemen, let me share special appreciation to the speakers of the webinar today. First, for Professor Madya Dr. Noor Azizi bin Ismail from University of Sains Islam, Malaysia. Good morning, Prof. Azizi. Second, Dr. Jon Mason, College of Education, Charles Darwin University, Australia. Good morning, Mr. Jon Mason. Associate Professor Bulent Tarman, Ph.D. from Gazi University, Turkey. Good morning, Mr. Bulent Tarman. Dr. Ramesh Kumar, Ph.D. from Indian Institute of Technology from Dhanbad, Jharkhand, India. Good morning. Professor Teguh Budiharso, Professor in English Language Education from State Islamic Institute of Surakarta, Indonesia. Good morning, Prof. Teguh. And then our rector, Bapak Dr. Haji Assa'idi, M.Ag. Good morning, Bapak. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that by participating in this webinar, we are in the right place and in the right time. Together, let us accelerate the exchange of ideas. I am especially pleased that the discussions and activities here will inform many things dealing with the challenges and solutions of education and social studies. I ensure that the seminar will be profitable and fruitful for everyone joining this seminar. I am confident that you will find new ideas. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for Mr. Mahali. Now we are going to listen to the welcome speech delivered by Rector of Universitas Islam Nahdlatul Ulama Jepara, Indonesia. We also ask Mr. Sa'dullah to open the seminar officially. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Sa'dullah Assa'idi.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, best wishes to all of us. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wabihi nasta'inu ala umuri dunya waddin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin, Sayyidil Anbiya wa Imam Salin. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. La khawla wa la quwata illa billahil azim. Your Excellencies, Master Dr. Jon Mason from College of Education, Charles Darwin University in Northern Territory, Australia. Good morning. Master Madya Dr. Noor Azizi bin Ismail, University Sains Islam, USIM, Malaysia. Assalamualaikum. Associate Professor Bulent Tarman, Ph.D. from Yasilova Kaldiran, Eltimos, Ankara, Turki, Ph.D. Yang saya hormati, good morning. Dr. Ramesh Kumar, Ph.D. from India, Professor Dr. Teguh Budiharso, M.Pd, State Islamic Institute, IAIN Surakarta, Indonesia, and so Dr. Haji Mahali, M.Pd, Dean of Faculty of Education and Teacher Training, and all Dean and Director Program of Postgraduate from UNISNU Jepara. All Deans, Mr. Haryanto, Magister of Humanities, the Chairman of the first international webinar on teaching, education, and social studies in InCoTESS 2020. The committee of the first international webinar on teaching, education, and social studies in InCoTESS 2020. All lectures of Nahdlatul Ulama Islamic University, UNISNU Jepara, Indonesia. All participants of the first international webinar of teaching, education, and social studies in InCoTESS 2020 from all over the world, Australia, Canada, Turkey, India, Malaysia, and Indonesia. All the invited distinguished participants of the first international webinar on teaching, education, and social studies in InCoTESS 2020 from all over Indonesia, Sabang Island to Maluku Island. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to give my gratitude to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who has given His mercy, faith, and guidance to all of us in our life, in order that today we can meet and have Nahdlatul Ulama Islamic University, UNISNU Jepara, Indonesia, conducted by Faculty of Education and Teacher Training, Nahdlatul Ulama Islamic University, UNISNU Jepara, Indonesia, in a healthy condition. Alhamdulillah. Amin. This morning, it is a greater honor for us, Nahdlatul Ulama Islamic University, UNISNU Jepara, Indonesia, to be with you all in Nahdlatul Ulama Islamic University, UNISNU Jepara, Indonesia. InCoTESS 2020 is an interdisciplinary international webinar that invites academics, independent scientists, and researchers from around the world to meet and exchange the latest in ideas and discuss issues around the areas of teaching, education, and social studies. The international webinar will gather professors, lecturers, researchers, and students from various disciplines to discuss under grand theme challenges and solutions of teaching, education, and social studies in digital era. The presenters are welcome to attend the webinar and present your work according to schedule given by the committee. We would like to take this opportunity to thank for your participation in the international webinar on teaching, education, and social studies. In that, let us give my gratitude to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who has given His mercy, faith, and guidance to all of us in our life, in order that today we can meet and have this webinar. Let us pray for the success of this event. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Master Ambassadors of friendly countries, in the name of government and Jepara people and society, I, the region of Jepara, say welcome to the first international webinar on teaching, education, and social studies in InCoTESS 2020, challenges and solution of teaching, education, and social studies in digital era. Hence, I suggest that all participants make much use from these events. Ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the things I can say on this occasion. Once again, I warmly invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to much use from this event. We are ready to facilitate, protect, and collaborate for better mutual progress. That's all I can say. Thank you for your fine attention. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wallahu muwaffiq ila thariq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
For Mr. Sa'dullah, please open the seminar officially.
Mari kita buka bersama-sama dengan baca Ummul Kitab Al-Fatihah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you.
Thank you very much for Mr. Sa'dullah Assa'idi as a Rector of UNISNU Jepara, Indonesia. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, now we will continue to the next session. However, before we move further to the next agenda, let's close the opening ceremony by reciting Hamdalah together. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Finally, from the deep of my heart, I do apologize for my mistakes while presenting this agenda. I would like to say thank you for your nice attention. The last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now continuing our meeting to the next agenda, that is plenary session by some distinguished speakers. For the plenary session 1 and 2 will be held by moderator. Please welcome Mr. Haryanto.
Thank you, Mrs. Santi Andriani, the Master of Ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency of the keynote speaker, Mr. Jon Mason, Prof. Madya Noor Azizi Ismail from Malaysia, Mr. Associate Professor Bulent Tarman, Ph.D. from Turkey, Mr. Dr. Ramesh Kumar, Ph.D. from India. We will be together in the plenary session 1 and the plenary session 2. And then in this session, I would like to give some of the terms that we are going to do for this webinar. For the plenary session 1, I will be with Mr. Dr. Jon Mason from College of Education, Charles Darwin University, Australia. Good morning, Mr. Jon Mason. You will be ready, right? And then the second one is for Professor Dr. Noor Azizi Ismail from Malay, the second speaker for the plenary 1. Good morning, Mr. Noor Azizi. Thank you. And for the first plenary session, we are going to have the discussion at 9:40. So each speaker, for Mr. Dr. Jon Mason, for Professor Madya Azizi, you will be given 20 minutes to present your material. The first material will be presented by Mr. Jon Mason for 20 minutes, and the second term is Professor Madya Dr. Noor Azizi Ismail from Mali for 20 minutes. Afterward, we are going to have discussion at 9:40 to 10:30 a.m. Jakarta time. This is Mr. Jon Mason and Mr. Azizi. The plenary session will start. For Dr. Jon Mason, floor is yours for 20 minutes.
Terima kasih banyak Bapak Haryono and also Ibu Santi. Assalamualaikum. Selamat pagi semuanya. Good morning, everybody. I am wishing that everybody will have a wonderful conference. I feel very honored to be invited by Professor Pak Teguh to speak at this conference. It's always enjoyable for me to be engaging with friends in Indonesia. And so for me, the invitation was very easy to say yes. Okay, so today I would like to talk about building learning communities. And so, Pak Haryono, will you control the slides or shall I do that? Which would you like? Okay, we'll come back to the start. Okay, so I have been very interested in online learning communities ever since the first time I discovered the World Wide Web had been invented back in the early 1990s. At that time, I was an employee of the University of Melbourne. And I can remember very clearly also my Vice Chancellor was very excited at that time about the possibilities of virtual education. I remember him saying very clearly back in the mid-1990s that he thought we were at a very important moment in time with the web and with education. And his view was that he hoped that we would be mainstreaming the digital revolution in education very soon. So 25 years later, here we are in 2020, and we have this situation with COVID-19, a very challenging situation for all of us all around the world, with a major disruption. And for the first time, we've been living through many disruptions because of technology innovation, but this time we have a major disruption that has come from nature, really. And now we are looking to technology to be part of the solution for us to stay connected. So of course we are all getting used to using Zoom meetings and these kinds of webinars. We're having more of these kinds of experiences all the time. For many people, this kind of experience is quite new, but for others, we have been engaged in online education for many, many years. One of the things I think that is important about this moment for us is that COVID-19 presents an opportunity for us to take some pause so that we can rethink what it is we're doing, what is most important in our lives, how we might fine-tune the education system so that we might collectively perhaps meet the goals that organisations such as UNESCO have set out for us to achieve by 2030. The Sustainable Development Goals seem to offer very important guidance for us. I think the challenge for us at the moment is how we might go about doing that. So if I could have the next slide, please. So yes, just to remind us that this is the experience that a lot of us are engaging in at the moment. As I said, for many people, this is a new experience, and I'm sure it is very much part of what everybody's talking about as the new normal. The new normal is in fact quite a challenging time for many people, and it is a wonderful experience for us to be able to participate in these kinds of events. Of course, this opportunity is not open to everybody around the world. Before COVID, we had quite an alarming number of children without access to education around the world. And now because of COVID, we have a much greater number. It's really very alarming. So if I can continue with the next slide, please. Recently, the United Nations just released a policy brief for stakeholders in education, for governments all around the world, to be thinking about how education should be recrafted in the next few years as a consequence of COVID. And these 4 dot points represent the 4 priority areas that the UN is suggesting we should shape our policy as we go forward. And I think it's obvious we should be suppressing the transmission of this infection all around the world as best we can. It is an urgent response we must meet. But also it's heartening to see there the UN identifying things like protecting education financing and building resilient education systems. And lastly, but not least, I think this idea of reimagining education and accelerating change is such an important thing. So if we could just move on to the next slide. This opportunity to reimagine is where we're at the moment. So the clear challenges we have at the moment for many people is a transition to online and at scale. We need to do this right across our nations, right across the globe, and we need to try to do it equitably to engage many learners from all around the world and in situations where they may not actually have good access to the internet. These other challenges around funding and leadership and meeting the uncertainty and anxiety and all the mental health issues that come with the new normal, these are also important things that we must meet. Next slide, please. Of course, prior to COVID, there are always these kinds of challenges in terms of engaging online. Sometimes we do not get the connectivity that we want. I've already spoken about the equity of access. Sometimes there's only intermittent access to smartphones and computers. And sometimes our educators might not be as familiar with some of the digital environments that we're using. At my university, we are using a learning management system called Blackboard, but it's not used everywhere around the world. And we always notice that for the first period of time, all our students and academics who come to use it for the first time need time to get familiar with these kinds of environments. We shouldn't underestimate the importance of that and how that connects then with teacher readiness and skills development that has to be attended to. But we also have problems of distractions and assessment and also feelings of isolation and being disconnected. It seems like an irony in a way in this hyper-connected world that we're in, that people do still experience isolation and feelings of disconnectedness. So in this, I see that there is a pivotal role for community. And sometimes when I talk about ICT in my classes at university, I'm always emphasizing the C for communications. And communications is a word that has a close similarity with community. We need to be able to communicate with each other. So the next slide, please. So learning communities then is something that I think is very important in education, because if we attend to this process of building communities, building learning communities where we are connecting with others and communicating with others, we get the opportunity to share with others and learn with others and also extend our own learning horizons. We're all in a world now where lifelong learning is so important. Yes, there's many experts in our world, but we all can learn from each other. We all bring experience into the conversation whenever we have a new conversation, when we meet new people. So I think learning communities offer a really rich opportunity for us to be exchanging perspectives, exchanging ideas, helping each other. So if you can just click next. Yes, so with learning communities, we also get this sense of belonging, of interdependence and shared purpose. So of course, participating in a webinar like this is one thing. It's one thing to be benefiting from the technology such as Zoom, where we can see each other and we can talk and we can share ideas. But what I'm talking about here is this idea of community, something that persists, where we can connect and have conversations over time, not just in email, but in discussion forums and other kinds of venues online. This idea of learning communities has also been picked up by my university, and we host an international journal of learning in social contexts. It's called Learning Communities, and it's been, I think we're up to issue number 25. Every now and then we release a special issue of case studies, and one idea that comes to my mind is we should very soon have a special issue that is focused on case studies associated with responding to COVID, perhaps also case studies of the response coming from Indonesia. I also wanted to just, in this conversation today, in my slides, I wanted to just talk a little bit about some history. I'm someone who is interested in the environment, and I have been for a long time, and I just wanted to point out that just after the Americans landed on the moon for the first time back in 1969, there was a publication called the Whole Earth Catalogue. It's now, it was 50 years since that publication came out, but it was the first publication that was attempting to build a global sensibility, a global movement in relation to protecting our planet and the environment. And so, interestingly enough, prior to the World Wide Web being invented, back in 1985, the people who published the Whole Earth Catalogue also set up the very first online community, and it was called the WELL, the Whole Earth Electronic Link. It's just a little piece of trivia there for you, but I wanted to bring it in. I think history can help us in understanding what it is about the internet and the web that is so profound for us in education. And for me, I think this idea of community and building community, connected community, is a very sustainable approach for education to be going forward. If I could have the next slide. So if we move right ahead to 2020, then, if we look about the web and we search out what's happening with professional learning communities, there's many opportunities for educators, for anybody all around the world, if they've got an internet connection, to participate and join in some kind of professional learning community. This is just one example of that at edweb.net. You can find many such opportunities to participate in focused learning communities around particular themes that are relevant to education, whether it's STEM or whether it's leadership or whether it's ESL, whatever it might be. There are so many opportunities to join these kinds of learning communities. And importantly, many of these opportunities are for free. So there's a challenge there for us as educators to also embrace these kinds of opportunities in ways and integrate them into our own workplace, and so that we can enrich the kinds of interactions we might have in our own workplace as well. Not every formal educational institution, whether it be a school, a college or university, can provide all the necessary tools at any particular time. We always will need and enjoy connecting with others outside our institution and being part of a bigger and broader community. So then another example is here. You can see another one here. There's all these, many examples of learning communities available. If we can just go forward again. Next slide. I also wanted to point, just go back one. We just that one. Yes. So this is just a model that is used within the Australian school curriculum, whereby we talk about the importance of the general capabilities in school. And this is not about the content area, it's not about the learning content area, it's about the skills that we must try to nurture in our students at school at the moment. And one of the general capabilities is this idea of ICT capability. And if we look into this model, we can see here a lot of it is about hands-on, creating with ICT, investigating with ICT, and communicating. Then this maps very much onto this idea of the 21st century skills. There are a lot of different models that represent this idea of 21st century skills. And of course, we're in 2020 and we've been talking about 21st century skills for 20 years now. And we have another 80 years to go for the 21st century. So no doubt these kinds of skills will evolve and change over time. But I particularly like this, this framework that has been developed by the World Economic Forum back in 2016, because I like the way it separates the foundational literacies from the core competencies. We often talk about the 4 C's in these skills: critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration, and also the character qualities that are so important to nurture in our schooling, in our foundational learning. Next slide, please. Sometimes we see other versions of these 4 C's. Sometimes we see 6 C's. You'll see there at the bottom that Pearson, the educational publisher, is also trying to put emphasis here on the importance of cross-cultural competence. I'm very much a supporter of that idea. I sometimes think we can add another C into this picture, a C for concentration, because sometimes I think that IT, information technology, is also an interruption technology. With social media, we are often always getting alerts and pings and people interrupting us on our smartphones all the time, and it becomes a challenge also in the learning environment to maintain concentration. So I'm starting to think that concentration ought to be another C that's included in this list. If we can go forward. The flip side here, of course, for the 21st century skills is also the profile of the modern teacher, and it's all about a mindset. And it's about, in my experience, it's about being willing to learn with our students at the same time, to explore the new affordances of the digital technology together with our students. In some contexts, also being willing to learn from our students, to learn with them. So I think there's a lot, if we are going to truly reimagine education going forward from a traditionally didactic kind of dynamic in the classroom, where the teacher is always at the front in control, towards a much more open style process, whereby we have the opportunity to access so many powerful digital technology tools in which we can connect and communicate and discover new knowledge about the world and about each other very, very quickly. So it's incumbent, I think, upon us as educators to think about how we might also lift our own game and make ourselves open to this opportunity to be learning with our students. Next slide, please. So also at the moment, we seem to have an abundance of advice and opportunities during COVID. Next slide, please. There's a lot coming that's available. I'm always seeing in my email and alerts in Twitter and other places, opportunities for free software to download and free this and free that, all sorts of opportunities. But I often like to go to very credible sites to see what they're doing in times such as these. And I mentioned UNESCO before and the UN, and I draw your attention to this site here that UNESCO has put up recently, and there's a range of very, very excellent resources here for you to explore if you want to check that out. But in the middle of this, if we go to the next slide, we can see that there's an opportunity for you to engage, and UNESCO also has this idea of a meta learning community, if you like. It's all about trying to aggregate useful, informative stories from all around the world, so we can build a global perspective and share that with each other. So there's a question then about the emergency response that is happening at the moment from the perspective of UNESCO, given that UNESCO is focused so much on sustainability. And the question is, will it be sustainable? And in a recent research article I downloaded, looking at the emergency remote learning in Indonesia at the moment, I discovered this article, and there's also plenty of stuff that I'm downloading which are good news stories as well. And on the UNESCO site, there's lots of good news stories about how teachers and families and students are all making the most of this situation and discovering what they can do with the new tools. But there is also this kind of situation whereby sometimes students are finding it difficult to all of a sudden having to be independent learners, doing their assignments and reading on their own. So I think this is a common experience, and I flagged that before when I was talking about the challenge of being isolated. I also think this is a consequence of being too focused on content in our education system, and not enough focus on the importance of the role of the community and being connected and communicating with each other. We need to put in place opportunities for our students and our teachers and our educators to be engaging and communicating with each other, so that we can mitigate against these kinds of experiences which are not as positive as we would like them to be. Next slide, please. So we've all seen these kinds of diagrams about the importance of learner-centered education. If we go to the next one. Next slide, please. Oh, so I've got 3 more slides. Just go back to this one. So there's 3 more slides in my presentation, and they're really just to share with you some models that I have found very, very useful in my time as an educator, in terms of helping to build online conversations and to coax students into sharing information with each other and to build their own knowledge. And this first model was developed by Professor Gilly Salmon from the UK almost 20 years ago, when she wrote a book about e-moderation, the art of moderating online discussion and trying to facilitate higher order thinking in our learners in the way that we engage with them in online discussions. And so we can see here this 5-step model is all about just setting the foundations, of course, with access and motivation, socializing, welcoming and encouraging everybody, moving into sending messages to each other, building familiarity with each other, engaging with each other, and then sharing information, and then moving on to actual active knowledge construction and development. This is, for me, this has really been very, very useful, a very useful guide in how I've proceeded with the way that I conduct a lot of my online discussion forums with my students. Very, very powerful model. So the next model there is also talking to educational theory, I suppose. We all know that social constructivism and these theories also align very closely with the kinds of ideas I've been talking about in terms of the importance of building an online community. So connectivism is one such theory. There's another called connected learning, the connected learning framework, but you will see others if you start to look at this area and research it. There's one last slide I want to share with you that I also think is a very, very powerful guide for educators in terms of thinking about maintaining a community of inquiry. I think building this attitude of inquiry is such an important thing for our students these days. Our students need to be growing up at this time where we have so much access to information, so much access to misinformation. Our students, our education systems need to be nurturing an attitude of inquiry. And so this model here called this framework called the community of inquiry is all about an optimum online educational experience. And it emerges when we're really attending to bringing together these three different things, three different ideas of presence, our own presence as teachers, facilitating cognitive presence in terms of the kinds of content and activities that might navigate that content, and also the social presence. We need to maintain a supportive social presence in the systems that we develop to support online education. So that's just a quick run through a whole range of slides. I may have missed some ideas I had intended to share with you. I'm sorry if I did that too quickly, but I just wanted to put that in front of you and perhaps open things up for some questions. I'm very happy to answer any questions about this idea of building online community for education.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mason. Time's up. It's great. Thank you, Mr. Dr. Jon Mason, for presenting the material with the topic developing online learning communities, and some point already noted here. And because time so limited, I hope all participants already noted any point that you would like to raise. Hand for the question. And a great once more, please give applause to Mr. Dr. Jon Mason.
Terima kasih.
Great, thank you. And the second keynote speaker will be goes to Mr. Professor Dr. Madya Noor Azizi bin Ismail from Malaysia, from the Universiti Sains Islam USIM Malaysia. Mr. Noor Azizi will present the topic Challenges and the Solution of Islamic Education in Digital Era. For Mr. Professor Dr. Noor Azizi Ismail, floor is yours.
Auzubillahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in wa ba'd. Thank you for Chairperson Mr. Haryanto, and also you are chairman of this conference. Thank you very much to give me the chance to discuss and to prepare this paper. Honorable Rector, Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Jepara, Mr. Saidullah Said, thank you, Mr. And Honorable Dean of Fakultas Tarbiyah dan Ilmu Keguruan, Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Jepara, Mr. Dr. Mahali, thank you, Mr. Mahali, invite me in this seminar. Dr. Jon Mason, our participant, and ladies and gentlemen. I am very honored to be here today, and I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Dean of Fakultas Tarbiyah dan Ilmu Keguruan Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Jepara, Indonesia, for inviting me as one of the keynote speakers in this meaningful and fruitful international conference on teaching, education, and social studies in InCoTESS 2020. My topics that I want to discuss and present today in this seminar is challenges and solution of Islamic studies in digital era. And my presentation is focused on 6 points, important points. One is introduction to this topic about challenges and solution of Islamic studies in digital era. Second, the meaning or definition or concept of Islamic studies and also Islamic education. Third, what is the digital era or definitions or concept of digital era. 4, challenges of Islamic studies in digital era. 5, solution to these challenges. And last but not least, conclusion for these topics. I start with the introduction to this paper about the challenges and solution of Islamic studies in digital era. The digital era is the era in which human activities are connected through internet and other technology components that change all aspects of human life. The changes from technology development, which have positive impacts as well as the negative impacts. The positive impacts is the easy for human to complete all of the activities and works today. Works that were previously done manually now can be completed quickly in the short times. The positive impacts that can be benefited from digital era is the proliferation of mass media. Mass media technology is proven to be a means to build the new social structures. The adverse impacts that have arisen includes the emergence of the culture, low work ethics, declining moral and increasingly complex social relations. The phenomenon does affect not only for children, school and university students, but also to our adults in this day. The Islamic studies is one of the areas affected by the impact of digital era, must be able to overcome the challenges and obstacles that occur in this era. This challenging must be solved by the Islamic educators, since Islam is one of the religions in the world to grow emotional, social, and spiritual values. Islamic studies is also the fortress of the savior of these values. Islamic studies must be able to offer an accurate solutions in order to be a good people who will achieve ultimate happiness, or we call in Arabic or in Malay, sa'adah fi dunya wal akhirah, sa'adah in this world and the world that's hereafter. We call in Arabic or in Malaysian or in Malayu al-qiyamah. Therefore, this paper aims to explore some challenges to Islamic studies and Muslim people in digital era and give some solutions to this problem or to this challenging. Second, meaning of Islamic studies. At the first World Conference on Muslim Education held in Mecca in 1977, Islamic education was categorized as follows. Education should aim at the balanced growth of total personality of man through the training of man's spirits, intellects, the rational self, feelings, and bodily senses. Education should therefore cater for the growth of man in all aspects: spiritual, intellectual, imaginative, physical, scientific, linguistic, both individually and collectively, and motivated all these aspects toward goods and the attainment of perfection. The ultimate aim of Muslim education lies in the realization of complete submission to Allah on the level of the individual, the community, and humanity at large. And second meaning or second concept of Islamic studies, the Ahmad Fahim told, in other words, education in Islamic perspective is a process of transferring moral values or knowledge that develop the whole potential of human nature physically and emotionally, with solid and balanced individual able to carry out of their responsibility as good or God caliph in the earth. And after that, next slide please. What is the digital era? Okay, next slide. What is a digital era? Now, the third point in my slide or my presentation is about what is the digital era. We saw is many definitions or many concepts of that the digital era, but I like to start the meaning and the definition of digital era with the division or definition from Wikipedia. Digital revolution is the shift from mechanical and analog electronics technology to digital electronics, which began in the latter half of 23rd century. With the adoption and proliferation of digital computers and digital record keeping that continues to the present day. Implicitly, the term also refers to the sweeping changes brought about the digital computing and communicating technology during this period, analog to the agriculture of revolution and industrial revolution. The digital revolution marks the beginning of the information age. Jill Shepard and Simon Fraser thought that digital era is characterized by technology which increase the speed and breadth of knowledge turnover within the economy and society. And the best I see the definition about digital era is from Unita Furi Al-Chiasari defines that digital era is an era in which all humans' activities are connected through technological sophistication called the internet. The emergence of digital era is the result of the advance and development of science and technology that changes all aspects of human life. The changes result from technological development is an advancement which have positive impact as well as the negative impacts. And fourth point in this presentation is the challenges of Islamic studies in digital era. Seeing the varied impacts of the digital era on Islamic studies actually has a tough challenges in facing and protecting students from its negative effects. Those challenges, one is from Aqidah. Now the internet, we come read, see and heard about Islam liberal, Islam plural, LGBT, or we call lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transsexual, wrong Sufism webs, films, and biaya. We can also see free thinkers web, film, video, YouTube, and so on. The second challenges of Islamic studies in digital era is about culture, manners, or we call it in Islam, adab, behavior, ethics, and akhlaq, or moral values. The third challenges of Islamic studies in digital era is about next slide, please. Okay, about communication and relation. We see in the internet, in digital era, about film, video, webs, about child-parent relation, husband and wife communication, family communication, and all that affected of Islam and Islamic studies. The fourth challenges of Islamic studies in digital era is about curriculum. Now we have interactive curriculum, online curriculum, informal curriculum, non-formal curriculum, and also formal curriculum. And the fifth challenges of Islamic studies is about governance, or to Islamic studies governance. It's like affected to kindergarten, Islamic kindergarten, Islamic school, Islamic universities, local government, state, and also government. And the last point about this presentation is about solutions. How one can solve this problem or this affected from digital era? And the solution is one, is back to basic. We must back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam method in tarbiyah about aqidah, teach sharia, teach adab and akhlaq. And also we must back to basic, because the basic is very important thing to resolve this problem. And the last and but not least, the conclusions. The changes which happen in the world today teach us to be more concerned about Islamic value. Despite the many positive effects in digital era, it is come together with negative effects. The practice of using digital technology in Islamic studies cannot be underestimated by the Muslim, because this modern approach serves the purpose of Islam for delivering messages in line with new era. There are many aspects we need to be looked into Islamic studies, such as curriculum, delivery methods, governance, and optimum usage of digital technology. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, to give me a chance. Shukran jazila. Okay. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much for Professor Dr. Azizi Ismail. 5 points you already presented about the challenge of the Islamic studies in digital era for the introductions, and then also the meaning, challenge of Islamic studies, the solution, as also the conclusion. Again, let's give applause to Mr. Professor Dr. Noor Azizi Ismail. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, the honorable keynote speaker and also the beloved all of the participants. Now we go to the discussion session, and in this session we are going to have the discussion for 30 minutes. The first term will be given for 3 questions, and we will take from the raise your hand on the icon of this slide. Okay, the first term will be given for 3 questions. Okay, just raise your hand, please. Click raise your hand. The operator will give you the chance for the question. Ladies and gentlemen, the question will be read by the operator and also the moderator. Please wait a minute. Okay, the question will be noted on the raise your hand on the icon of this display. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And now it's already 10 a.m. Indonesian time, and your question will be recorded by the committee. And again, for the plenary session of session 1 is over. Again, thank you so much for Mr. Dr. Jon Mason from College of Education, Charles Darwin University, Australia. Thank you so much, Mr. Dr. Jon Mason. The second keynote speaker by Professor Dr. Noor Azizi bin Ismail from Universiti Sains Islam USIM, Malaysia, with the topic Challenges Solution of Islamic Education in Digital Era. Thank you so much, Mr. Dr. Noor Azizi. Great, it's really great honor for you on the speaker, and we are going to have the next plenary session, that is the plenary session 2. For Dr. Ramesh Kumar, the keynote speaker 1 from Indian Institute of Technology, IIT, Dhanbad, Jharkhand, India, with the topic Understanding Educational Gap and Minimizing its Barrier to Meet the Organizational Need. And the second keynote speaker goes to Mr. Associate Professor Bulent Tarman, Ph.D. We are really sorry, Mr. Bulent Tarman, for your profile. I would like to read your profile, that your profile is the editor-in-chief of Research and Social Science Key to Journal. Is that right, Mr. Bulent Tarman? I hope there will be no mistaken. Thank you. We are really sorry for the mistaken.
It's okay.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start the plenary session 2. I would like to read at glance about the keynote speaker, that is Mr. Dr. Ramesh Kumar from India. Let me read at glance about Dr. Ramesh Kumar. Is the Ph.D. in Management. Ladies and gentlemen, for Dr. Ramesh Kumar, floor is yours for 20 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so respected Chairman, sir, Dean, sir, of Faculty of Education and Teachers Training, UNISNU, Jepara, Rector, sir, of UNISNU, Jepara, distinguished keynote speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning all. I would first like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me for the conference. It's a great honor for me to deliver a keynote speech at this very first international conference focused on teaching, education, and social studies 2020. So let me start with the big picture. Okay. So as we all know, right, technology today is moving at a very, very rapid pace, right? It's day by day, there are a lot of technology changes. There are a lot of new things that is happening, right? And to keep track with this technology, right? The only way or the only solution that is viable for us is to equip and enable our student community to learn these new skill sets and thrive in this digital era. Learning is where will be the key essential metrics to really thrive in this digital era, right? And when we compare today with 15 to 20 years back, right, we have seen that there are a lot of abundant changes that has happening across all the sectors, right? 15 to 20 years back, the time frame, and when we compare that with today, right, a massive changes has been seen and has been noticed, right? So one such change to bring for educational sector is to develop and impart more and more new curriculum or syllabus, right, to meet the current market and organizational need, right? Until and unless this is met, then only all this thriving in the digital era and all these things will be possible. Okay, so can I have my slides? Yeah, thanks. Can you move back? Can you move back, sir? The previous slide. Yeah. So let me first talk about one of the challenge to give you a brief, right? The challenge that I'm going to talk about is the educational gap, right? So we as faculty members, right? So what we practice, right? We come up with a very rigorous curriculum for the students, right? So that they excel both personally and professionally in their career. But when we hear back from the organizations, right, that these students are not industry ready, or they are not fit as per organizational skill set requirement, right? That's the time when we are like a sock, right? It's a sock for everyone, because we have spent a lot of time for grooming these student community, right? Both in terms of professional and professionally, right? But when we hear this is really a shock for all of us, right? So my presentation will focus on understanding this educational gap and how we can minimize this barrier, right? So that there is a win-win situation for everyone in the educational ecosystem. Okay. So let me give you a brief overview, right? So education is a fundamental right for everyone, right? Be it from a rural region, be it from an urban region, definitely we have to have this fundamental right for everyone. Okay. Earlier, 15 or 20 years back or 10 years back, there were concerns raised related to adequate infrastructure, right? The institute, the university, the colleges, right? They were complaining that they don't have the adequate infrastructure. So that has been taken care to a greater extent, right? So I will talk about on adequate infrastructure, how exactly these universities, these institutes, these colleges are really coming up with this adequate infrastructure to really impart the quality training. Okay. Third point is the quality of teachers, right? As and when the technology has improvised, as and when new learnings have come up, definitely teachers are at the front to really gain those insightful stuff and impart the same to the student community. So that is also being taken care and that is in place. Okay. Another point, most of the organizations and most of the institutes they talk about is the affordable and accessible education, right? Education is a fundamental right, but at the same time, it should be affordable by all. At the same time, it should be accessible by all, right? That is also a mandate that everybody needs to be followed, right? One of the important parameters at the end comes out is what's the impact on quality of learning outcome, right? So the students, they spend time, the faculty, they spend time on grooming these students, but at the end, right? At the end, what's the learning outcome? Are the learning outcome really beneficial for the organizations, for the society, for the country, right? So those impacts needs to be assessed and seen whether they really bring larger impact on all the things, right? And next is the roadmap availability. So this is very, very important on the roadmap availability. Let me give you an example, right? So now is an era of artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, data science, right? But we, at the same time, we also need to focus on what will be the next roadmap. After 1 year, after 2 years, how the education system needs to transform themselves so that they keep on meeting this requirement every year, right? After each year passing by, they should be in such a roadmap so that they are able to understand what's the market need, try to revamp their curriculum to meet that need, and thus there will be a win-win situation for everyone in the ecosystem. Next slide, please. Yeah. So let me talk about the infrastructure, right? So we heard that there were a lot of complaints raised related to infrastructure. Infrastructure is not in place. The delivery is not happening in the right perspective, right? But this is being taken care at almost all the national places, be it universities, be it international universities, be it a small school in a rural area, right? Everything is being taken care now. What are the current options that we see currently? We have the e-learning introduction, right? So this e-learning introduction is like a online platform, right? Everybody can just have a login ID and a password. They can get into the system and they can leverage this online free of cost, right? So most of the universities, they already have this in place, and the accessibility part also is taken care. We have ready-made content, audio-visual material and multimedia content, which is open for all. It's only a matter of fact, based on their skill set, based on their key motivation, the student needs to get enrolled and just keep on going and learning through all these stuff, right? Third important metrics that we currently see right now, which is mostly leveraged by most of us, is using this data to learn new insight about each student taking an examination or learning a concept, right? So since we already have e-learning platform, or maybe in a classroom setup, we are already doing a continuous evaluation of all these students, right? And trying to judge how exactly they fit on a scale, right? So we have a ranking system where we understand how exactly this student is performing down the line in their academic year, right? Also, one another benefit of this platform is seen that it ensures a student to grasp content, right? And they can share, understand, discuss, and practice in the same way as they do in a real class study. So those kind of interactions, those kind of online communities that we have heard previously, right? All this is being taken care, and that is currently in place, where it really suffices the backbone, or maybe we can say the pillars, which will really facilitate greater learning and benefit for everyone in the ecosystem. Next slide, please. So after having all these things, what's the biggest gap that we see in the education industry, right? In the education. So it is the industry readiness, right? So we have thousands of students that comes out after completing their course, right? But are they industry ready? Are all these students are going to get employed, right? That's the biggest concern that most of us as an organization, as a governing body, right, as educationalists always come across, right? So one of the important gaps that we see is the readiness, right? And that's where we have to work on, so that student community always come prepared and they get easily absorbed by the organizations. So what are those gaps that we come across? One of the major gaps that they talk about is gap in understanding of the product versus service organization, right? So whenever the student community, they proceed for interview process, right, always they see that there is gap of the student in understanding what is a product based organization versus what is a service based organization, right? So their structure, their model, their internal processes, all those really are the key essential metrics that needs to be showcased by the student to really gaze through the interview and pass through the interview, right? So they need to clearly understand what is the difference between a product, what is the difference between a service, which is a tangible, which is intangible, which delivers experience. So those kind of knowledge they need to have. Second important gap is the industry or the domain knowledge, right? So what exactly they understand that, okay, if it is manufacturing, all companies are into manufacturing, but under manufacturing also there are subdivisions, right? Some can be a cloth manufacturing company, some can be a textile, some can be a food manufacturing company, right? So those differences in terms of their operations, industrial operations, they need to understand. Third is the business model, right? It is very, very important nowadays that each student, they understand what are the business models of these organizations for whom they are approaching for their interview or for their job opportunities. Let me give you an example, right? So we have Uber and Ola. Okay, so Uber and Ola, from an external perspective, it will be seen that they are both in the transportation domain, but their internal business model is totally different. So a student who is trying to give interview for these companies, they should understand that these companies from an external seems to be in transportation domain, but from an internal perspective, their business model of operations is totally different. That is the key metrics that they need to understand when they gauge these kind of companies for employment opportunities. Okay. And last is the internal business process. Okay. So always every company has their own internal operations process, right? So they have their own standard operating processes, right? How exactly these standard operating processes really helps the organization in meeting their all needs? That is very, very key essential stuff that everybody needs to know about, be it from the student community, be it from the organizational perspective. They need to be aware. Thus, these internal business processes will help the student community to really understand that and able to deliver much better when they join these organizations. Okay. Next slide. Yeah. So what's the way forward? So we understood that these students are not ready, right? So their skill sets are not matching to the organizational need. So what's the way forward that we can look into so that the gap can be minimized and these students really have a good employment opportunities and career opportunities down the line? Most of the educationalists, they talk about the technology, right? So technology is the key to enable frequent interaction, understand the requirement from the organizations, right? So that a student can be molded and be made ready for organizational needs. Yeah, that is definitely true. That is definitely true. I totally agree with that, because technology is one which really helps in understanding the details. And by these details, the student can equip themselves to really understand what's the need out there, right? And based on that, they can prepare themselves internally to really progress further. Second is breaking down the barriers to innovation, right? So we have to have an innovation rich culture, right? And how this innovation rich culture can be developed internally? It can be done through project based learning, right? It can be learned through workshops, conducting workshops. It can be learned through organizational case studies teaching, right? Where the student community is given organizational cases and then they are grouped into groups and they are told to solve these cases and really come up with alternative solutions to really tackle these kind of problems that the organizations are facing, right? So that's where their innovative mind will open up, and that's where their thought will progress towards new thinking, right? Third is the institute industry regular connect. This is very, very important. This connect is very, very important, because until and unless this connect is there, then only as educationalists we will understand what is the need of this organization, so that we can equip our students, so that down the line when these students graduate, they are employable in these organizations down the line, right? So we need to have this regular connect with the industry to really understand the organizational workforce needs in the coming years, right? Mostly in the 1 to 2 years, because what is happening, as we know, right, technology and things are changing. There is automation coming up, there is artificial intelligence coming up. Definitely these requirements from the organizational perspective will also change, and thus we need to just gauge in 1 to 2 years what's the workforce needs by these organizations. And lastly is the AI, right? Artificial intelligence for education. So we have seen that artificial intelligence has been used in all the sectors, right? So similarly for education, right, how artificial intelligence can really play a big boom, right? It can help us in better educational outcomes, right? We can track matrices and we can understand which matrices are not well performed. We can work upon that so that our educational outcomes are really enriched and it's really beneficial for everyone. And secondly, it is responsible for bringing improvement in quality and scalability of teachers training. That is also very, very important, because that's where these new learning, these new requirement from the organizational will be delivered and done by these teachers, right? Our educational professionalisms, right? So that they really impart all this new stuff to the student community to take things forward and make them ready, industry ready, right? Next slide. So what's the use of technology and how technology really delivers better outcome, right? So there was a research done. There was a research done by most of the individuals and most of the universities, right? And it has been found that 76% students adapt to diverse learning style, right? Since technology is an enabler, so they can have they can have access to online content. They can have access to better curriculums, right? Better curriculums, better syllabus as per the new requirements, right? So 76% adapt to these diverse learning styles. 77% of the students conveyed the survey as it boosts student motivation, right? The motivation factor is also a very, very key essential, because until and unless the students are motivated, then only they will be able to grasp new things, new learning, and able to proceed further. 76% mentioned that it enhances the material that being taught, right? So 76% enhance the material being taught. So whatever materials and contents are being shared through these technology-led platforms, right, they are really enriching, and these really adds benefit to the student community. 81% of the teachers believe that tablets enrich classroom learning, right? So even with the offline, if there are presence of online stuff, right, in terms of tablet, PC, laptops, where the students can devote their own time, they can learn new skills. That is really an enriching factor for the student community to learn new things. 86% of students believe they study more efficiently with tablets, right? So another factor is the efficiency, where it was noticed that efficiency also increases with use of online platform for learning purposes. 59% of students would like to see their own mobile devices to enhance learning, right? So they are looking to have their own devices so that they can learn on the go, right? So that's where the scalability of the solution should be, so that they can learn on the go and acquire new skills. Next slide, please. As I talked about, right, so we have to break the barrier to innovation, right? Until and unless the student community bring out innovative thoughts, bring out new way of thinking, develop the entrepreneurship skill sets that is the much needed at this time, right? That's how the success will go to them, right? So how exactly this can be done? As I mentioned, right, so this can be done through organizational case studies, live project workshops, all these activities, right? And how it helps the student community? It helps them to build relationships, team building, right? Be intentional with the lesson planning, so they understand what exactly is the lesson is planned for today, what are the cases I need to solve for today, and thus they come up with that mindset. They have a very high and consistent expectation, right? So their expectation in terms of these project, these organizational case study solution is really high, right? They really want to understand that if I suggest these alternative approaches, how exactly and which one the organization is going to accept, so that this really can get implemented in the real scenario. It also helps the students to get engaged and excited, right? So they are very excited, and they are really in an engagement scenario where they have peer interactions, where they have a mentor to interact with to really get the things going. It provides also multiple opportunities, right? So
Mr. Kumar, 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So it also provides multiple opportunities for the student community, because today they are solving, let's suppose, a case from the learning side. Tomorrow they may be solving a case from the social studies side, right? So these kind of learning opportunities across multiple sectors, across multiple verticals is really enriching for them. And also it gives them a good understanding on solving real problems from the organizational per se. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is what the main thing I was talking about, the institute industry regular connect, right? And they need to understand what's the need, right? What's the need? Why they are telling that the students are not industry ready, right? So they need to understand the need from the technology perspective, from the skill set perspective, from the communication perspective, where exactly is the gap, and then based on that gap, the industry associates and then the institute associates, right? They need to connect together and develop a curriculum. They need to align the curriculum so that the needs can be met, right? And then they need to manage this need for greater quality of learning outcomes with desired results. So it's like you get the requirement, you understand the need, bring it into your curriculum, impart the learning through your curriculum for the entire period, and then at the end you see that whether the desired result in terms of employability, in terms of getting those skills acquired by the student really takes place. Okay, next slide. So what's the implementation? So already most of the institutes and universities are already using, right? So what we see that most of the university institute, they just upload their online content and just give the student access to go through the details, and then the session is complete. It's more of a passive use of learning, right? But now the things has to be changed. We need to be more on the active side. Why active side? Because this active side of implementation and active side of learning will really help the students to grow better. It will help in interactions, it will help in global connections, it will help in team building, it will result into peer collaboration, right? And more enriched learning from different holistic atmosphere, the student community will be able to derive, and they will be able to propose new solutions and new way of thinking down the line. Next slide, please. So at the end, right, I want to state that creativity and innovation, they need to go hand in hand, right? At one side, the student creativity needs to be enriched. At the same time, innovation needs to be focused more so that the industrial gap can be reduced, right? So creativity is thinking, you have to think, and then innovation, you have to bring new opportunities, new thinking in terms of designing the new curriculum to meet the industrial needs. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for Mr. Dr. Ramesh Kumar, Ph.D. from Indian Institute of Technology, Dhanbad, India, for the topic understanding educational gaps and minimizing its barrier to meet organizational need. There are 9 points presented by Mr. Ramesh Kumar: educational system, current option, and then the biggest gap, way forward, the use of technology, the institute and industry, religious connect, and proposed usage for the implementation. Quote about the creativity thinking. Again, give applause to Mr. Dr. Ramesh Kumar for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, the participants of the webinar, thank you so much for participation. And the second keynote speaker from the plenary session 2 goes to Mr. Associate Professor Bulent Tarman, Ph.D. I'm really sorry for mistaken, Mr. Bulent Tarman. Mr. Bulent Tarman is from Yesilova Mah, Kaldiran Cat, 2911, Estis Moskut, Ankara, Turkey. Mr. Associate Professor Bulent Tarman is the editor-in-chief of Research in Social Science and Technology Journal, GSSER Q2 Journal. Ladies and gentlemen, for the second keynote speaker goes to Dr. Professor Bulent Tarman, PhD. For Mr. Tarman, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my friends. Actually, I'd like to start, good morning to everyone. I'd like to start expressing my grateful feelings for the, can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Okay, good. Actually, I'm very pleased and honored to be invited for this great webinar. And actually, I'd like to thank the organizing committee with this opportunity for this first international conference on teaching, education, and social sciences with the title of Challenges and Solutions of Teaching, Education, and Social Studies in Digital Era. My presentation PowerPoint is also on the screen. And to all participants, I'd like to give my warm greetings to everyone, and thanks for being here. And education systems all over the world has gone through a dramatic change. A traditional education system no longer fulfills the modern day complex needs where everything is dynamic and evolving at a very fast pace. There is a huge amount of transformation that takes place in the present world in every second. Therefore, a new and modern way of education is required to handle such transformation arising as a result of creation of huge amount of information in a systematic manner. Therefore, to resolve the shortcomings of the traditional education system, the world is moving towards digital education, which addresses all the issues and challenges of traditional education. And digital education can be defined as the use of combination of technology, digital content, and introduction in the education system, instruction, in the education system to make it more effective and efficient than the traditional education system. So through this presentation, I'd like to discuss and rethink social studies in digital education system that will shape the future of our coming generations for the better. Actually, for this presentation, in this slide, I give the general outlines of my presentation, starting from the definition and the importance of social studies education. I'll touch a little bit about crucial issues and implications for policy and practice, and will end giving some recommendations. Next slide, please. And everybody mentioned, actually, our other presenters, keynote speakers mentioned about the pandemics, how this pandemic changed our lives, and the importance of information and communication technology. It affected all of our lives. It changed all of our styles of learning and teaching. So I wanted to emphasize again the importance of how this rapid changes are affecting and the role of ICT in the education. Next slide, please. And if you look at to our presentation from a reasonable questions perspective, these are the questions that I will deal with throughout this presentation, like what is the definition of social studies education? Why is it important? Why should we rethink it? And what do mean with rethinking? What do we mean? How often we need to rethink it? What is the vision of powerful teaching and learning in social studies? What is the measure of the times? Where does the humanity go? I think this is the biggest question among all of these questions. What are the challenges for education in the digital revolution era? What skills and competencies do we need? And yeah, other presenters also mentioned about these 21st century skills. So I will also touch a little bit more deeply regarding with social studies and digital citizenship education, because this is my main focus on with this presentation. And what is the future of teaching profession? What is the role of student? Next slide, please. Okay, let's start with the definition of the social studies. It is defined by National Council for the Social Studies in the United States as, there is a big definition, but I just took a part of it to emphasize the important part of this definition, because this term social studies education is defined differently in different countries, and it is understood by differently by different people, by different academics or colleagues. So this is the mainly accepted definition given by the National Council for the Social Studies in the United States, which is the place that I got my PhD at Penn State University, and I lived in the States for 9 years. So I was able to understand what really social studies means. And the primary purpose of social studies is to help young people make informed and reasoned decisions for the public good as citizens of culturally diverse, democratic society in an interdependent world. So this is the definition, and as you see on the slide, it is emphasized the person, the community, and the role of preparing good citizen, the purpose of preparing a person through the social studies education. And this organization, this non-profit organization, NCSS, has a position statement about this digital era, in this digital era, about this the role of social studies education, preparing digital citizens within a global setting. And they have a powerful teaching and learning vision in social studies. and they emphasize that social studies teaching and learning are powerful when they are meaningful, when they are integrative, when they are value-based, and social studies teaching and learning are powerful when they are challenging and active. So these 5 main areas are emphasized by the NCSS. Next slide, please. Yes, it is. We are living in a strange time. Like, for the first time, knowledge is renewed faster than generations. Yes, when we look at our time and when we compare it with Middle Ages, we consume in a single day the amount of information that people living in the Middle Ages had consumed during a lifetime. So you can imagine how big is this difference. So this producing more knowledge and consuming more knowledge brings, of course, extra challenges and opportunities in our educational life or in our social life, in our all lives. So, and our other presenters, keynote speakers already mentioned about the importance of artificial intelligence and the role of technology. And with this knowledge renewed faster than generations, transhumanism came as a concept to discuss. So I ask this question: how accurate to determine the 21st century skills? Because one of the keynote speakers also mentioned we are in the first 20 years of the 21st century, and there are still 80 more years. So please, next slide. How accurate to define 21st century skills, and what will come in our lives with this next 80 years. So how accurate to define? But several organizations, international organizations, started to define and brought these terms of frameworks in the 21st century skills. This is one of them. The 21st century skills are different than 20th century skills, primarily due to the emergence of very sophisticated information and communication technologies. And a generation ago, IT and digital media were niche skills, but today they are very core competency necessary to succeed in most careers. Next slide, please. And yes, I already mentioned about this 21st century skills. Teachers may be more intentional about teaching cross-disciplinary skills, and schools require these skills that was shown in this previous slide. Next slide, please. And this digital revolution era brings 4 big challenges for education. And this challenge, like our world is changing faster than deeper than ever. In the midst of the of this whirlwind, we cannot avoid a re-evaluation of our common values, but also the identity and the role of our institutions, as schools are not separated from this re-evaluation. And these 4 challenges are diving into the unknown, because future, we don't know what will future bring in terms of like challenges, new challenges, and embracing the world of technology, finding the new benchmarks, betting on the human. Next slide, please. And when we look at the digital responsibility in numbers from different places, I tried to give some examples, like from Mexico, Spain, UK, and United States. Like 59% of teachers in Mexico say that teaching digital competence and responsible use is one of the main advantages of using technology in the classroom. And 73% of parents in the UK are concerned about their kids accessing inappropriate material online. And these kind of concerns brings, of course, like what kind of skills and competencies that we need to teach to our students. Next slide, please. And also some more numbers, like 92% of future jobs globally will need digital skills. So these are kind of proof to show the importance of these kind of skills. And especially, I would like to focus on the these kind of skills. Next slide, please. Yes, with these skills, what kind of our teachers, what kind of what is the future of teaching profession? The students are forced to be active, responsible, and participants in their learning, and the way of teaching and learning is affected because of this rapid change in technology, and artificial intelligence change our lives, and the role of multimedia format, and teachers are going to, they already start playing as mentors instead of instructors or depositing knowledge to our students. They should act as mentors by using this artificial intelligence. Next slide, please. And when we look at from students' perspective, from students' side, students are now the owners of their own journey. And these are some main competencies, learning competencies that they should have: creativity, communication, citizenship, critical thinking, character, and collaboration. Yes, next slide, please. Okay, here, this is the term with this technology we start using, and some of the reports and research focused on this digital intelligence as a concept that was brought to our consideration as educators, like IQ or EQ, like the general and emotional intelligence. There is another type of intelligence called digital intelligence, and this can be broken into 3 levels: digital citizenship, digital creativity, and digital entrepreneurship. And actually, the challenge for educators is to move beyond thinking of IT as a tool or IT-enabled education platforms. Instead, they need to think about how to nurture students' ability and confidence to excel both online and offline in a world where digital media is ubiquitous. And here, this figure shows what kind of what is this digital intelligence, what does that consist of. And before this slide, actually, I would like to emphasize that 3 levels. The first level, the digital citizenship, is neglected when we compare with the other 3 levels, because the digital citizenship has often been overlooked by educators and leaders. This is in spite of the fact that it's fundamental to a person's ability to use technology and live in digital world. Next slide, please. Yes, we need to, in one of the, in some research, it is emphasized that these are the main digital skills we must teach our children. these are, of course, this can be seen on the screen, like what kind of skills, digital rights, digital literacy, digital communication, and digital emotional intelligence, digital security, digital safety, and digital use. This digital use is the ability to use digital devices and media, including the mastery of control, in order to achieve a healthy balance between life online and offline. And the other one, this digital safety, which is the most parents are concerned about their children's safety because of this digital, in this digital era. The ability to manage risks online, for example, cyberbullying, grooming, radicalization, as well as problematic content like violence, and these problems, to avoid and limit these kind of risks. This is a kind of skill that we need to teach our students or our children. And the digital emotional intelligence, the ability to be empathetic and build good relationship with others online. Digital communication is another skill that we need to teach, the ability to communicate and collaborate with others using these digital technologies and media. And digital literacy is another important skill, which I will also touch a little bit, because European Union also prepared a kind of framework for this skill, and I will explain it in the next slide. But digital rights is the eighth skill that we should teach. This is the ability to understand and uphold personal and legal rights, including the rights to privacy, intellectual property, which is one of the main problems of our time, because technology brings, of course, challenges, as well as it brings opportunities. But this intellectual property is a main concern of our time, because people can reach the information, reach the data easily, but it also brings kind of this intellectual property and plagiarism kind of problem. And freedom of speech and protection from hate speech is related with this digital rights. So this digital literacy, this is the figure shows the digital capability framework prepared by this JISC, which is joined. Next slide, please. This is the European Digital Competence Framework for Citizens, and it is called DICCOMP, and it has 5 areas and 21 competencies. So this is the European Union perspective. They have, next slide, please. They have a 2020 strategy to emphasize this digital competence, the importance that people need this kind of digital competence to be able to participate and benefit from digital opportunities, but also mitigate possible risks. And the European Union, one of the reports shows that almost half of the European Union population has insufficient digital skills. So they have a 2020 strategy to eliminate this kind of insufficient digital skills. And that's why this competence framework is prepared by these people. Please, next slide. Yes, this DICCOMP offers a tool to improve citizens' digital competence. This is prepared by Joint Research Center, that's and they emphasize the 8 key competencies for lifelong learning. And somehow the different, the 21st century skills frameworks and these European Union frameworks are all aligned or intersect each other, because there are some common skills and competences they all emphasize. Next slide, please. And we all mention about how important to have these skills because of the rapid change and the role of ICT in our life, in our education. But when you look at this issue from another perspective, like what if you don't have these kind of opportunities, like the issues of digital divide, because it is related with haves and have-nots. Next slide, please. So at this moment, it is important to ask how many of our people around the world has the access to these kind of opportunities. And with this pandemic, some research shows that 1.725 billion learners were not receiving any education worldwide because they don't have, because of the digital divide. Nonetheless, there is no single solution that will be applicable around the globe. And never has the digital divide been so starkly visible as now. Most of the suggested approach to providing education in this time of crisis have centered around the use of technology. But with these opportunities, or having this kind of opportunities in education or in our lives, we may have advantages, but we also need to think about the other people who doesn't have these kind of opportunities. Yeah, next slide, please. Actually, next 2 slides will show what part of the world has this opportunity in terms of using this. Like, this is the slide, and statistical information shows the internet world statistics according to the continents like Asia, Europe, and other continents. And next slide shows the internet world penetration rates, and North America has 94% of, it is the top region, has the opportunities and the using this, and the other continents like listed. The reason of showing these kind of statistics, like which part of the world has this kind of opportunities and which other parts doesn't have that many, which will give us an idea which part of the world needs to be focused to close this gap. Next slide, please. And in conclusion, yes, with this pandemic, we are living through a difficult time, and we don't know what new panic tomorrow will bring. And we start criticizing the existing systems in almost all areas, like asking whether this happens because of this injustice and unfairness occurring everywhere at every level. This is very important, related with the skills in social studies that we teach our students, because injustice and unfairness can be eliminated by teaching these skills that I mentioned in our previous slides. So no matter what, who the cause of this pandemic or this kind of rapid change is and how it ends, we all understand the fact that we were not aware enough until we lost our blessings. So with these digital skills, with the role of ICT, we all need to focus on what kind of digital intelligence skills that we need to teach through the citizenship education in our educational system. And educating good citizens or humans requires a new touch. That's why I asked that question, like how often we should rethink social studies. The definition of the social studies education by NCSS was written in 1992 that I shared at the beginning of my presentation. So this needs to be rethink, and we need to refocus on what kind of citizen, what kind of human that we need to prepare, or what kind of skills they need to, and competencies that we need to have them gain. And the next slide, please. Yes, the mission of education or schooling remain for maybe, not undoubtedly, remain for the next 50 years, to continue to develop well-rounded individuals, And this means an active citizen who has all the necessary skills. And I already mentioned about the importance of these digital skills. And we don't know, this digital revolution will perhaps become the greatest human revolution in history. Thank you for your attention. And I think my time is over now.
Yes. Thank you so much for the associate professor, Mr. Bulent Tarman, Ph.D. from the editor-in-chief of the Research in Social Sciences and Technology of GSSDR Virtual Journal, Turkey. Ladies and gentlemen, please give applause to Mr. Bulent Tarman. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And now we are going to have the session, the question and answer sessions. We are going to have term 1 and term 2. For term 1, we are given 3 questions. We are given for about 25 minutes for 3 questions, and the term 2 for 25 minutes for 3 questions. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first term, I would like to give the occasion for the first question. The first question goes to Dr. Jon Mason. And the question comes from Imro'atul Solihah, Mrs. Imro'atul Solihah from IAIN Surakarta. The question is, how to improve the student motivation in online learning, and how to evaluate the student achievement in remote learning versus online learning. Thanks a million. The second question goes to Professor Noor Azizi Ismail. The question comes from Universiti. The question is, what challenges are faced by the teacher or lecturer in this digital era? And then, is online learning suitable to use, and how to make students understand the material presented? And the next question, the third question, goes to Mr. Ramesh Kumar. The question is, as you have presented that technology has both positive and negative effect. The question is, how is the role of parents and teachers in preventing students or children from the negative effect of technology? Thank you. And the first opportunity to answer the question goes to Mr. Jon Mason
Okay.
for 7 minutes. Floor is yours.
Okay. Terima kasih, Pak Haryana. Also, thank you very much, Ibu Imroatis, for your question. It's good to receive a question from you. I will do my best to answer it in less than 7 minutes. First of all, I think the first comment to make about student motivation in distance education, student motivation is always a problem, whether it is in the face-to-face classroom or online distance education. It is often a big problem, and that's one reason why I was focusing on the importance of how learning communities can sustain interest and engagement with students, is because of this problem of motivation falling off because the students are feeling isolated for some reason. We need to use the technology in ways that really connects our students with each other and with us, so that we can maintain this sense of belonging in some kind of learning community, some kind of safe learning community, I think is really important. But to the question of how you then evaluate student achievement, that's a bigger question in my view, because we are transitioning through a period of rapid change here. We've been talking about, the other speakers have also been talking about 21st century skills and the importance of changes in digital literacy and what that really means, and digital citizenship, all these kinds of things, which often are soft skills and not necessarily related to the content area of the curriculum. So we do need to come up with new rubrics for how we might appreciate the engagement and the development of these skills of our students. In terms of some of your other comments there about remote learning versus online learning, in my experience, I'm not quite sure the big difference there, because in many ways, remote learning, in Australia, for example, remote learning has the connotation of connecting with students many hundreds of kilometres away. And our history here is we've had it goes back a long way with distance education and remote learning, using radio as the main means to connect there. But look, I think this question, back to the first part of the question, students' motivation and connecting, I think online community and putting attention to developing online community in a sustainable way is the way forward there to address that. I hope that's answered your questions to some extent, Ibu. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jon Mason, for the answer question. I hope Mrs. Imratul Salihah satisfied for the answer. And the second question goes to Professor Dr. Noor Azizi Ismail from Mrs. Yuyun Fitriah. The question, what challenges are faced by the teacher or the lecturer in this digital era? And is online learning suitable to use, and how to make students understand the material presented? Mr. Prof. Azizi, floor is yours. Excuse me, Mr. Prof. Azizi. Maybe the connections interrupted. We are really sorry. And the next question goes to Mr. Ramesh Kumar. The question is from Mrs. Dia Perniati. Floor is yours. 7 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, right? So this is really interesting because now we see that there is a lot of technology uses that is going to happen, right? When we talk about the digital era and new learning, right? So definitely all the stakeholders who are involved here, mainly the parents, mainly the faculty and the student, they need to take very precaution and careful steps to monitor how the technology is being leveraged in delivering the content. So first thing from the parent side, right? From the parent side, it is a continuous guidance that they need to keep on the student, right? And along with the continuous guidance, regular monitoring. It should not be the case that they have just given them some device, some electronic device, and then they have left the student alone to continue with their study. There can be misuses. There can be misuses seen, right? So to avoid that, best practice should be continuous monitoring and regular guidance. Okay. From the faculty standpoint of view, the faculty plays a very critical role because they are the influencer, they are the mentors, right? And it's very, very essential for them to really guide and mentor the student in the right direction. That's how the interrelation between the student and faculty becomes stronger. So more of influencing, more of mentorship needs to be in place when the students are leveraging technology for their educational purposes. From the student perspective, they also needs to be proactive because it's about learning, right? So motivation of new learning should always be engraved, right? So that they always think that new learning is always coming in my way, because that's where the engagement will happen more. Okay. It also about developing the interest in the students, right? Because until unless they develop interest in the new curriculum or new syllabus or the things they are keen on learning, that's where their engagement will enhance. Okay. And thirdly, the last important point is we have to also focus on the activities that they are more keen to learn, right? Rather than imposing and burdening something which they don't like, right? So that interest also we need to keep in mind, as Professor Jon sir told, right? So we also have to impart some kind of soft skills to them so that they really focused on their key learnings rather than getting deviated and using misuse and doing misuse of technologies, right? So all the participants, all the stakeholders, from the faculty, from the student, from the parents, they need to play a key essential role when they are leveraging technology for their educational purposes. Hope I have answered your questions. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you are not audible, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ramesh Kumar, for giving the answer. I hope Mrs. Dia Perniati satisfied with the answer. And again, I would like to give the chance for Mr. Prof. Noor Azizi Ismail. Hello, Mr. Noor Azizi Ismail. The connection interrupted, I think so. Okay, the third question for the second firm still goes to Mr. Jon Mason. Yes, the question is, it is from Mr. Alec Yusron. Now, it has become a necessity for distance learning. Many problems arise, including the uneven internet network due to the geographic location. What is the solution? 5 minutes for Mr. Mason. Floor is yours.
So thank you again for this question. I think I heard the question correctly. It's a good question, of course. There are many big questions about trying to find solutions to the challenge we have at the moment, and connectivity, of course, is a big challenge. And I think this also relates to some of the other questions I see in the chat feed. I see there questions about the haves and the have-nots, and how do we bridge the gap here? How do we solve that solution? It's a similar kind of problem, solving the problem of good connectivity versus not so good connectivity, the haves, the have-nots. I think the way we have to approach these problems is that there's going to be a set of solutions. There's not one solution for all contexts. We have to think about a range of solutions. If we think about not necessarily online learning, but digital technology being the tool that can help us, then we can use digital technology for online and for offline purposes. One of my PhD students from Pakistan is focused on looking at solutions for out-of-school children. And when he started his studies, there was 265 million children out of school worldwide, and a very high proportion in Pakistan. And so, in identifying a solution, he's also looked to history as well as to the future. And in looking to history, he identified the importance of the one-room schoolhouse, the one-room multi-grade schoolhouse as something important within society that can bring people together for all kinds of events and engagement, interaction. But in that one-room schoolhouse, on occasion, there might be the opportunity to bring some kind of digital technology, whether it's online or offline, to be shared. So my view on this issue of connectivity, it's always going to be a problem. In fact, at my university, every now and then we might have a day where there is a problem with connectivity, and we have to find some kind of plan B for that situation. So it's a perennial question, and I just don't think there's a simple solution to that one, but it's a question that we also have to keep on asking, because I do think the question you're asking is an important one, as is the question of equity for bridging that gap between the haves and the have-nots. So we have to keep on asking these questions until we find viable solutions. That is the best I can do with that question. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the answer, Mr. Jon Mason. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We still have 30 minutes to go, so we open the second term for answer question session. This term will be given for 3 questions. The first question goes to Mr. Bulent Tarman. The question comes from Mr. Husni Mubarak. One of the characteristics of 21st century learning is collaborative and digital literacy. How could we make sure that the student use digital technology in positive way by collaboration in digital environment like teaching and learning process in pandemic era? And the second question goes to Mr. Ramesh Kumar. The question is, in this disruptive era, human power has been replaced by machine. In your opinion, what should be prepared by prospective teacher to make them or teacher not out of date? This is from Mrs. Rifa Anikurmala Ida. The third question goes to still Mr. Dr. Jon Mason. What is the online learning system in Australia? Are there any obstacles during the online learning? Okay, for Mr. Bulent Tarman, 7 minutes, floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, collaborative learning is one of the 21st century skills which we all need to teach our students by using the technology, especially in this digital era. This collaboration, the importance of collaboration gets more and more important. With this collaborative way, as I a little bit emphasize the importance of how we can, how our teachers and the schools can use this collaboration by using the informational technologies. And I think this is one of the main skills that not only our student, we all need to have. And this recent developments brought made this easier than before, like using, for example, this webinar brought us together, like when we share our knowledge and our experience with each other easily. So this is a positive way. But when we the digital security and the digital literacy are the other two main skills that we need to teach our students throughout this 21st century skills. And if you look at from the positive side, we need to be more sure about this digital safety and security, because this collaboration can be used for different purposes if we cannot focus on the other negative effects of this technology and sharing or breaching the information easily. So I think if I understood the question correctly, this is one of the main skills, and by using this technology, this collaborative learning of each student, like using the technology, using the smartphones, they already do this kind of collaborative learning. When they do their assignment, when they prepare their homework, they already use this collaborative learning style. So they already apply this kind of skills, but they also use this kind of skill for different purposes. For example, there are international games that students play together, and this can be like, as educators, we need to think about what kind of things takes their motivation well, and how we can integrate these kind of things into their learning to make this learning easy through this kind of collaboration. Because I see, for example, our students at a high school or middle school, even in primary schools, they always at the screen and play with games with other students from a different city or from different country, and this kind of connection can be turned to productive collaboration. So this is an opportunity. The technology can be an opportunity to use this kind of to make the learning more effective. Thank you.
Mr. Tarman. I hope the answer can satisfy you, Mr. Husni Mubarak. And the second question goes to Mr. Ramesh Kumar. Floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. So thanks for the question. Right, so it's correctly that machines are taking human individual jobs, right? But from the teacher standpoint, from the faculty standpoint, right, technology is just a facilitator, okay? Technology is just a facilitator for imparting learning. So we should always think technology as an enabler rather than thinking that it will take away our jobs. No, because the human touch that is required for imparting education, that will always remain. Okay, so that will always remain. Technology is just an enabler. It's a facilitator to impart the learning so that the student learn more and they acquire new learnings for their growth, both in terms of personal and professional. Okay. The next thing that is very important to focus when I tell about human touch, our faculties are the main influencers for our career, because they help us in pushing forward and achieving our goals in terms of learning new skills, in terms of equipping ourselves with both the hard skills and the soft skills that is required for our forward going in our career, right? So the human touch is very, very essential. Our faculties are the main influencers of our career. They are the one who is continuously motivating us to go above and beyond and do new things in our life, right? Both as well as from the career perspective, as well as in terms of professional perspective, right? So the influencer and the motivating factor are the skills that comes from the human touch. So we should always keep in mind that faculties, jobs and positions will always be active, even if technology enhances and if we have machine learning in place. Okay. Apart from that, one important key skills from the faculty is the path shower, right? So we might have seen that there are several doubts as a student we always come across, right? And our faculty, our teachers are the one who really takes one step ahead and helps us in clarifying those doubts, right? Which gives clarity in our learning. So they are the one who can help us in clearing our doubts. They are the one who can help us in decision making skills, right? Which are very, very critical in new learning and moving forward, right? So rather than thinking technology as a as a back front seat, we should always think that technology as an enabler which facilitates more learning and more guidance in the coming era. One more thing I just want to add is the analysis skill, right? Sometimes what happens as a student community, we provide answers, right? But these answers needs to be validated by some faculty, right? So machines are programmatic language, right? And all individuals have their own language, own writing skills to really write, right? So it's the duty of the faculty to really understand the meaning of our answers, of the student answer, and based on that judge and give right answer, right marks and right evaluation, right? So always definitely there will be presence of faculty even if technology is there, but technology as an enabler is really just boosting the education. Okay.
Time's up.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the answer. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have 10 minutes to go. We are going to open the next term for term 3 for 3 questions. And I would like to give the chance for the first question goes to, goes to Mr. Bulent Tarman. This is from Putri Rahmawati. I would like to ask for Professor Bulent Tarman, how could we build and set up our mind to always think critically and creatively, which those are very important for us as a student. Thank you. And last question goes to all keynote speakers. And the question is really diligent. I think it's brilliant from Moscow, from Mr. Mashkur Nganjuk, East Java. The question is how to generate the ability to do something of value independently and democratically in the world of education in the pandemic era. Comparative studies in India, Australia, and Turkey. Thank you. The first question goes to Mr. Bulent Tarman. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. And that's a good question. And critical thinking, if we try to define it, critical thinking is the ability to distinguish between true and false information, good and harmful content, and trustworthy and questionable contacts online. So this is a critical thinking definition. And there are some essential dimensions of critical thinking and steps of the critical thinking procedure, like everyone can use it. Critical thinkers routinely apply intellectual standards to the elements of reasoning in order to develop intellectual traits. Like these standards are clarity, accuracy, relevance, logicalness, breadth, prediction, significance, completeness, fairness, and depth. These are some intellectual standards, and the elements, these standards must be applied to the elements that, as we learn to develop, like purposes, questions, points of view, information, inferences, concepts, implications, assumptions, and these elements can be turned to intellectual traits like intellectual humanity, like throughout this procedure, like the analysis of thought, the assessment of thought, the dispositions of thought, these skills and abilities of thought. These are the ways of implementing critical thinking in our life. So if we use these certain steps like the clarity, accuracy, relevance, logicalness type of standards in this process, we can critically and creatively apply in our learning. Yes, those are very important for our students, and I hope this answers the question. Hello?
Thank you, Mr. Bulent Tarman, for the answer. And for all keynote speakers, still one question. All of you are given only 4 minutes to answer the question because it is related to the comparative study in India, Australia, and Turkey. The first chance goes to Mr. Jon Mason. Floor is yours. 4 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much for this invitation for this question. It's always interesting to engage in collaborative research and in international kind of sharing of perspective about experience with challenging events such as COVID. I suspect we could do. We could actually from this InCoTESS conference also consider collaboration about involving everybody in documenting the challenges that we're sharing. In terms of trying to find some way forward, a lot of my research is focused on how we can best scaffold and enable our students to be asking better questions. And so I continue to think that is the way forward, is to identify the kinds of questions that people are really asking. And from that, we can work out what it is that matters most in each of our jurisdictions and each of our countries. What matters most? What are the things we need to solve first in order to continue to be able to use a viable and a resilient education system into the future, because the sorts of decisions we make now are going to have an impact in the immediate future. We have an opportunity to rethink and to recalibrate how we do things now. And so I think working out what matters most is of utmost importance in my view. And so collaborative studies will help us work that out, but I think we're also going to find that there's diversity in the experiences of people across nations. That's what there is. Yes. Unity in diversity, I think, is an interesting guide here. How to find that common ground in our diverse experience.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jon Mason. And the second term for Mr. Bulent Tarman, floor is yours. 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes, unity and diversity are the two important, as Dr. Mason mentioned. And we all need to be aware of these kind of opportunities. And my actually, I have a minor in comparative and international education when I was doing my PhD at Penn State University. That was another area, and this is a great opportunity. Like when you do comparative studies in not only in India, Australia, or Turkey, but in all other parts of the world, because we already mentioned about haves and have-nots, because yes, this is a kind of collaboration. We all use this collaboration from different countries. The participants ask questions, and that brings new type of thinking. Like if we have a question, like we start thinking. So this is a like multiple perspectives that you can gain through this kind of comparative studies, not only in one part of the world. So this is independently and democratically by giving chances to diverse communities and using these learning communities opportunity, as Dr. mentioned. I think this will give us a great opportunity to implement in our, and as a colleague from Turkey, I'm always open to this kind of collaboration. So thank you. Thank you.
And the next answer goes to Mr. Ramesh Kumar, 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question. Yeah, definitely I am up for this collaborative research, right? Because one of the main reason is bringing greater impact to society. And it's not only one continent, it's across several countries and several continents, right? And as mentioned, right, so new perspective of thinking will come in place, right, from different regions, that will add more value when we try to solve some problems, right? So as we know, in collaborative research, we try to focus on problems, and this problem is such a big problem that it has its root in different premises, different countries, different nations, right? So definitely understanding the problem and how exactly and how best way we can solve this problem so that it impacts the society at large. It helps in resolution of that problem, right, by various alternative solutions that we propose, and how we can bring more and greater impact to the society. That should be always our main intention and main objective, right? Definitely for implementation we have different techniques. We can leverage design principle techniques, we can leverage first principle techniques, because this will help us in coming to narrowing the problem and then understanding at the deeper root, so that we can come up with alternative solutions, and then from these alternative solutions select the best one, so that these can be implemented at a scale which will impact the societies at large. Hope I have answered the questions.
Thank you so much for the answer, Mr. Ramesh Kumar. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, the keynote speaker, Mr. Dr. Jon Mason, Mr. Professor Madya Noor Azizi Ismail, Mr. Dr. Ramesh Kumar, Ph.D., Mr. Associate Professor Bulent Tarman, Ph.D. Thank you so much for your participation for this seminar, and it's really great honor for us to be with you in the seminar, and hope this collaboration will continue for the next time. And we hope we can make any collaboration with Mr. Jon Mason, Mr. Bulent Tarman, and Mr. Ramesh Kumar. Me and I, as the moderator, really sorry for making any inconvenience for all keynote speakers. And again, I would like to say sorry and please apologize me for all participants that already sent your question, but due to the limited time, I couldn't accommodate your question. Hope this your question will be answered by the keynote speaker through the communication online or through our email. And again, I would like to inform to all participants that your question will be recorded, and please allow us, all the keynote speakers, to share your material and your PowerPoint to all participants. Is that okay, Mr.? Yes, thank you. And I, the moderator of plenary session 1 and session 2, Hari, very sorry for any inconvenience. Thank you so much. And we go to the next plenary session. That is the plenary session 3 will be conducted by Mr. Taufik Rahman, and the keynote speaker will goes to Mr. Professor Dr. Budiharso and Mr. Dr. Haj Assa'idi. Thank you so much for me. Thank you for all. Have a nice day and see you next time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Mr. Taufik Rahman, floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you very much, Pak Haryanto. And next, for the next plenary session, for the third session, it will be session the third for the time for Prof. Dr. Teguh Budiharso M.Pd from IAIN Surakarta, Indonesia, and the second by Dr. Haji Asa'idi, M.Ag from UNISNU, Jepara. But before doing that, I would like to remind the participants that the discussion technique, the participant who want to ask the question later through the Zoom, please click raise hand, or the moderator will give you the turn. Or the second, you can use the question in chat column. So just mention your name and also the questions. And now going on to the next session, I would like to introduce the speakers. The first one is Professor Dr. Budiharso, M.Pd. He is a professor in English language education. It is possible for me to read so many pages of your curriculum vitae of the profile. So I would like to make this concise. The name is Professor Dr. Budiharso, M.Pd. He lives in Surakarta, but the place and date of birth from Tulungagung, East Java, June 30th, 1964. And for permanent employment for today, he is a lecturer in postgraduate program, State Islamic Institute, Surakarta, and self-employment in Center of Language and Cultural Studies, or CLCS, in Surakarta also. And the permanent residence is in Sukoharjo, Central Java. The education background from doctorate degree from State University of Malang, and there are so many of his training experiences, start from Singapore to Australia, and also book publication. There are 16 books that have been published, and also there are 42 journal articles, so many. Okay, this is from Prof. Dr. Teguh Budiharso, and the second one from Pak Dr. Haji Assa'idi. He is the director of UNISNU Jepara, and he lived in Jepara but born in Jember, 17th of January 1956. Today he lives in Pekalongan, Batela, Jepara, and today for permanent employment as the lecturer and today as the rector of UNISNU Jepara, but he ever been a lecturer in Fakultas Usuluddin IAIN Wali Songo di Kudus, or today it is IAIN Kudus, and also has ever been Ketua Jurusan Tarbiyah Stain Kudus, Pembantu Ketua 3 Stain Kudus, Pembantu Rektor 2 Stain Kudus, IAIN Jepara, Institut Islam Nahdlatul Ulama, UNISNU Jepara, and Wakil Rektor Vice Rector 1, Universitas Islam Nahdlatul Ulama Jepara, and today as the Rector of UNISNU Jepara. For dedication, he has ever been the presenter in Perintisan Pendirian Perguruan Tinggi Nahdlatul Ulama in December 1987, and also as the Sekretaris to Yayasan UNISNU Jepara, Ketua Panitia Pendiri PTNU, and Kepala Biro UK UNISNU, Ketua Bidang Akademik Yaptinu 2011 to 2013, and today also as the one of the leaders of MUI, the National Council of Ulemas in Jepara 2007 until today, and also the rector. Those are the profile of both speakers. So I would like to give the time for the first speaker from Prof. Dr. Teguh Budiharso, M.Pd, and the topic is intercultural competence as an academic literacy in English language teaching. And the second one later, respectively, for Prof. Dr. Assa'idi, as the topic is philosophy of education in facing digital era. Both topics seems in the air today because it is related to intercultural competence and philosophy of education. Now the first, the floor is for Prof. Teguh. 20-minute times is yours, please.
Okay. Hello. Good morning, everybody. First of all, before I start to present my presentation, I would like to say hello to my colleagues from Italy, from Turkey, Prof. Bulent Tarman. Hello, Prof. Bulent Tarman. And also my other colleagues, Dr. Ramesh Kumar from India.
Hello, sir.
And Mr. Good morning. Good morning, Prof. Bulent, and good morning for Mr. Ramesh Kumar. Mr. Dr. Jon Mason has been living and get the permission from me. And I would like to say all of you our gratitude on behalf of my own and the committee of this seminar. I would like now to start my presentation. The idea that I include intercultural in English teaching is because of the condition that now intercultural is becoming the growing issue that are not spread to digital era, and also the ability to interact with other people internationally in a global context. I would like to infer also in our condition in Indonesia that the teaching of literacy is not satisfied yet. The first, the course in English language teaching that accommodate literacy is limited. And the most focus that we are actually put to the emphasis of teaching literacy in the English as an academic purposes is now not running well. So we are going to redefine how we should emphasis on the literacy, academic literacy on this context. Lanjut, Pak. Lanjut. First of all, in teaching literacy, literacy is not accommodate well in our teaching proportion in our curriculum because we don't have any proportional perspective on how literacy skill should be included in our curriculum. First, literacy in general is defined as the skill to read and write. It is not enough now. Actually, in higher education context, we need more than this. That include the first, reading and writing. And then in the reading skill, we need not only general word list that range from 3,000 to 10,000 word level, but also the academic level, academic vocabulary. We use the academic vocabulary to think, to talk, to discuss, and to anticipate the need of education and academic affairs in the university. Now, as the global trend on academic literacy happens, the focus is more on number one, communication skill, meaning we have to be master in speaking, not only for the lecture, but also how to persuade other people, how to campaign, how to argue, and how to present our opinion to others. Student of English department should be able to present this communication skill as they are successful from undergraduate to the doctorate degree. The second academic literacy is academic writing expertise. We are now encouraged to present, to publish any paper on the article to the reputable journal. We are also encouraged to write thesis or dissertation for the Ph.D. program. This all need a definite competence in writing. And it implicates that the teaching of English to the students starting from undergraduate to PhD skill, PhD level, should master the academic skill, particularly in writing academic English for journal publication. A PhD program having by research program, for example, didn't need to present to ask the student to involve in some courses, but they are targeted to publish their publication in a reputable journal, for example, Scopus, and they can shorten their time spent of learning into 2 hours after the publication finished. What are the next problem? When we are identifying the skill and we implement the academic skill, we do need that we have to prepare our curriculum that accommodate perspective and standard of writing skill, of speaking skill, And also in this global era, we need how to immerse the student in the digital literacy. As the digital literacy involves global culture all over the world, then we need also to include the intercultural communication competent. Intercultural communication means how to understand other culture, intolerant, and also the awareness of understanding other different culture that we have to understand in each language. The culture, attitude, behavior that are different from us will be expressed by the culture, intercultural culture. So we are, as the speaker of language, we are as learners of the language, have to understand how different culture sensitivity, how we can interpret, how we can highly appreciate other people, how can we understand different culture into one that enrich our knowledge in language teaching. In short, when we are teaching English in our context, we need the basic knowledge of reading that achieve the standard competence of reading, for example, the vocabulary, the grammar at a certain level. In addition, we need also understand the different culture that that have a good tolerance, and we appreciate highly the other people that we think is not in disagreement with us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Teguh. And then for the next speaker, Dr. Satullah, please, 20-minute time is yours, please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bapak-bapak narasumber yang saya hormati, serta peserta webinar yang saya hormati. Masuk tak? Dalam tema yang diminta panitia, saya penuhi dengan judul Manusia Pembelajar sebagai Proses Individuasi. Mengacu pada Grand Theme Challenge and Solution of Teaching, Education, and Social Studies in Digital Era, marilah kita sadar dan melangkah untuk tampil sebagai manusia pembelajar menuju proses individuasi. Oleh karena itu perlu diakui, meski alam semesta diciptakan Tuhan, namun hanyalah manusia sebagai spark divine intelligence yang diberi percikan ilahi. Terbukti pada saat Tuhan menanyakan nama ciptaannya kepada malaikat, mereka tidak menjawab, hanya manusia, yaitu Nabi Adam yang dapat menjawab semua nama itu. Manusia dengan percikan itu justru memiliki tanggung jawab kepada Allah, Tuhan yang Maha Esa, yang kemudian dirinya tampil sebagai manusia pembelajar. Tentunya ini konsekuensi kehadiran Al-Quran sebagai guidance for mankind, hudan linnas, petunjuk bagi manusia. Bahkan jadi yahdi lillati ya aqwam, pemberi petunjuk pada jalan yang lebih lurus. Petunjuk atau hidayah Al-Quran itu bertujuan mengarahkan manusia menjadi pribadi dengan jaminan memberi kesejahteraan dan kebahagiaan. Nabi Muhammad yang menerima wahyu Al-Quran bertugas menyampaikan petunjuk, menyucikan, dan mengajarkan manusia. Pada dasarnya menyucikan dapat diidentikan dengan mendidik, sekaligus mengajar pun memuat kegiatan mengisi benak peserta didik dengan pengetahuan tentang alam fisika serta metafisika. Sementara yang ingin dicapai dari pembacaan, penyucian, dan pengajaran adalah ibadah, kepada Allah. Tidak lain sejalan dengan tujuan diciptakannya manusia. Wa ma khalaqtul jinna wal insa illa liya'budun. Adapun kegiatan menyucikan, mendidik dan mengajar sangat membutuhkan suatu sikap mental spiritual sebagai dasar perjalanan proses individuasi sebagai seorang manusia. Proses individuasi ini berguna untuk mengenali tanggung jawab diri pribadi dalam rangka menerangi jalan-jalan yang pasti dilalui untuk menerima dirinya sendiri, termasuk menghadapi era digital, hingga merasakan kedalaman relung hatinya untuk membuka dan menjadi pribadi secara utuh. Berawal dari penciptaan manusia agar menegakkan kekhalifahan di atas bumi, justru tampak jelas bahwa pada diri manusia terdapat ultimasi rasional dan moral, guna menjalankan dan menyelesaikan tanggung jawab atas tugas sebagai khalifah. Sebagai khalifah atau wakil Tuhan yang bertugas mengelola dan memakmurkan bumi seisinya, manusia mendapatkan amanah, yaitu kepercayaan. Kesanggupan manusia memikul kepercayaan difirmakan oleh Allah, sesungguhnya kami telah mengemukakan amanat, yaitu tugas keagamaan kepada langit, bumi, dan gunung-gunung, maka semuanya menolak dan mereka khawatir, tetapi yang menerima adalah manusia, mereka khawatir dan mengkhianatinya, dan dipikulah amanat itu oleh manusia. Sesungguhnya manusia itu amat zalim dan amat bodoh. Juga ada kesanggupan atau muahadah atau janji manusia kepada Allah bahwa dirinya akan ta'abbud, menghambakan diri kepada Allah semata, tidak mengabdi kepada setan dan selain Allah. Hal ini sesuai dinyatakan di dalam Al-Quran, bukankah aku, Allah, telah memerintahkan, menjanjikan kepadamu, wahai anak keturunan Adam, agar kamu tidak menyembah setan. Sesungguhnya setan itu adalah musuh yang nyata bagi kamu, dan hendaklah kamu menyembahku, inilah jalan yang lurus. Terlepas dari itu, manusia sesungguhnya, Adam, adalah manusia yang diciptakan secara kreatif, yaitu diawali dengan ekstrak sulalah atau sperma. Jika masuk ke dalam rahim ibu akan mengalami kejadian yang bersifat metafisik, yaitu metafisik transendental, di bawah otonomi ilahi, yaitu Allah menciptakan, yang kemudian dalam hal ini Allah meniupkan ruhnya ke dalam diri manusia. Dari nafas yang disempurnakan dengan spirit atau ruh tadi itu, maka dalam hal ini akan menjadi apa yang disebut dengan penajaman sebagai ruh atau person, atau ego, keakuan, self. Jika dikonkretkan, istilah nafas yang berarti diri adalah jiwa raga manusia yang di dalamnya ada pribadi atau keakuan. Oleh karena itu, yang berbeda dari selain manusia, yaitu perbedaan mencolok, jika setiap ciptaan Allah secara otomatis telah menaati sifat-sifatnya, akan tetapi bagi manusia harus mentaati sifat-sifatnya. Peralihan dari eksistensi menjadi keharusan ini merupakan keistimewaan dan sekaligus resiko yang unik dari manusia. Itulah sebabnya urgensi yang unik dari manusia pembelajar hingga sedemikian pentingnya proses individuasi bagi manusia perlu untuk mendengarkan hati nuraninya, meskipun setan selalu melancarkan intrik-intriknya untuk menggagalkannya. Dalam ranah metafisik transendental, manusia yang paling dini ada ikrar primordial yang telah dibuat Allah dengan semua manusia, yaitu dikatakan, dan ketika dari anak-anak Adam, dari punggung mereka, Tuhanmu menciptakan keturunan mereka dan membuat mereka bersaksi dengan firman-Nya. Tidakkah aku Tuhanmu, alastu birabbikum? Maka dijawabnya, ya kami bersaksi. Bala syahidna. Allah berbuat demikian agar di hari kiamat nanti tidak akan berkata, kami tidak mengetahui hal itu, atau untuk membela dosa-dosa kalian. Yang telah terjadi adalah bapak-bapak kami dahulu telah berbuat syirik, menyembah Tuhan selain Tuhan, sedang kami hanya menuruti perbuatan mereka. Apakah engkau akan mengadab kami karena perbuatan dari pendusta-pendusta kebenaran tersebut. Manusia pembelajar untuk menjadi pribadi sebagai proses individuasi adalah mengacu pada teladan yang mengherankan karena perintah tersebut ditujukan pertama kali kepada seorang yang tidak bisa menulis dan membaca, yaitu Nabi Muhammad SAW ketika menerima Al-Quran, yaitu sebagai petunjuk. Teladan seorang yang tidak pandai membaca tersebut. Akan tetapi keheranan ini sirna ketika disadari arti ikra atau membaca dan diresapi dengan penuh kesadaran bahwa perintah tersebut tidak hanya ditujukan kepada pribadi Nabi Muhammad semata-mata, namun juga untuk umat manusia sepanjang sejarah kemanusiaan. Realisasi perintah membaca yang sekaligus merupakan misi belajar merupakan kunci pembuka jalan kebahagiaan hidup di dunia dan akhirat. Manusia pembelajar menandai peradaban yang dibangun dengan membaca. Perintah membaca sebagai awal pembelajaran merupakan perintah paling berharga yang diberikan kepada umat manusia. Membaca dan belajar di era digital memperoleh pencerahan sebagai proses individuasi tidak mengalami kesulitan. Kegiatan yang bersifat otonomi atau mandiri tersebut merupakan jalan yang mengantar manusia pembelajar mencapai derajat kemanusiaan yang sempurna. Saya kira demikian, terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Pak Dr. Sa'dullah. And now the time for having questions and answers. The first term, please, for the participants. And I would like to read the first question for Dr. Teguh. The first question. It comes from Pak Husni Mubarak. The question is that based on the result of a study released by PITSA and was published in Kemdikbud web, it was found that literacy level of Indonesian students in 2018 was in the category of low performance. So the question is that how we could increase students' literacy level? It goes to Prof. Teguh first. Please, you can answer directly.
Okay, thank you. The question is so classic that everyone feels that Indonesian literacy teaching is low. It is true. However, we need a breakthrough how to anticipate and understand and also solve the problem. The answer is like this. Number one, if we are relating the low capacity, the low literacy teaching in Indonesia, mostly because it is the evidence of lack evident in all school system. Our textbooks are low. Our teaching competence in literacy is also low. However, now we have a digital terminology, we have a digital context that we can improve faster our condition. Number one, the digital literacy is now growing to not only children in elementary school, but also the general community. For example, the lay people. We can improve the reading capacity, the reading ability through this media. We are also now having a good potential in teaching the mathematics, because literacy doesn't mean only reading literacy, but also writing, also digital ability, and also writing. We have identified this condition to our school children. If we are focusing on higher education, literacy, not only in reading, but also we can identify how many lecture every semester, every month, publish their articles in the international journal. The government also support the finance for the research and encourage the researcher to publish on their international journal. We can rate the amount in this year. There are 6 million Indonesian rupiah for a reputable university as the funding for the research and also international publication. I think we should solve the problem not only by seeing the traditional and conventional view because of a low capacity of reading, but also there are potential that support that can change, that can accommodate and increase our traditional problem on reading. My offer, if we are including the academic literacy to our curriculum content, not only in English language curriculum, we have a solution on this occasion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then the second question comes from Dr. Haji Muhammad Mukhroji, M.Pd. And the question goes also to Prof. Teguh. In terms of pandemic time like today, teaching literacy skills using online media faces many challenges. So could you please give an elaborative suggestion how to teach literacy skills via online learning? Thank you very much.
Thank you for Dr. Muhammad Mukhroji from Bandung Raya University. If we are trying to involve the digital media to increase reading ability to our students, we should address our question first to how the system of digital era are included in our teaching system. I identify that the rate of participation to digital teaching model is increasing because of our own motivation. We do not receive enough facilities on teaching using digital media, but because of our own initiative, the influence, the higher increase of student participation on the digital understanding, the digital needs, and the facility increase by themselves. In short, we do not receive the digital media from our system, but because it is our own external motivation. In the context of teaching, external motivation, the coming of external motivation, so a good and better understanding on this. All of the components of the participation have contributed to how reading literacy are increased by the student. The university, as the manager, as the management center to proceed the reading ability, should function this condition and manage in the curriculum by showing the digital promotion, the digital participation, and also involve the digital potential into the teaching system. We can find the reading materials, the reading assignment, the reading context, and also the evaluation from the digital media. And we can focus more on the academic purposes for the student in the campus. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Prof. Teguh. And the next question goes to Pak Dr. Sa'dullah. It comes from Pak Mufid. And the question is about konsep marah dalam Al-Quran jika dikaitkan dengan psikologi pendidikan. Pak Mufid mengharapkan Pak Dr. Sa'dullah bisa memberikan semacam filosofi pendidikan terkait dengan apa kaitan marah atau apa seluk-beluk marah jika diwujudkan atau jika terlahir di dalam proses pendidikan. Itu pertanyaan dari Pak Mufid ke Pak Dr. Sa'dullah. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Di dalam Al-Quran itu ada kalimat yang mengatakan wa tawassaw bis sabri wa tawassaw bil marhamah. Saling memberikan nasihat dengan kesabaran, maksudnya dengan sikap teguh, menahan diri, dan kasih sayang. Itu artinya di dalam mendidik, siapapun orang akan menemukan kondisi mental yang tidak bisa dibatasi. Tetapi seberapa besar akan dominan yang positif itu bergantung kepada pengalaman pribadinya. Oleh karena itu, term nafas yang saya kemukakan tadi, itu seperti yang dikatakan wa nafsi wa masawwaha falhamaha fujuraha wa taqwaha. Itu memang sudah ada dalam diri setiap manusia, tetapi manusia mempunyai peran untuk mengendalikan yang telah Allah berikan pada setiap diri manusia, apa yang disebut dengan ruh, yaitu spirit. Itu yang perlunya direkam, ditingkatkan, dikendalikan. Karena sifat ruh pada diri manusia itu adalah potensi yang sifatnya mendasari dalam kehidupan kita semuanya. Oleh karena itu, seperti yang dilakukan oleh kalangan sufi, komunitas sufi, biasanya di situ itu ruh selalu mendapat penguatan dari hati, yaitu qalb. Sehingga ini menjadi peranan yang sangat penting. Bagi seorang guru atau bagi seorang pendidik, yang dibutuhkan adalah nasihat dan teladan. Jika yang terjadi di situ adalah marah, mungkin akan tidak berhasil atau tidak produktif dalam proses mendidiknya. Memang satu hal yang menjadi tantangan bagi dunia digital ini, ketika di situ itu berbicara mengenai teladan. Karena teladan itu adalah sosok atau performance yang memang itu harus dapat kita perhatikan secara seksama. Kembalinya kepada kita masing-masing. Saya kira begitu. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak Dr. Sa'dullah. And for the committee, is there the last question or enough? Okay, it seems there is no more question. So, one more question from Pak Saifuddin. Beliau bertanya tentang filosofi belajar merdeka menurut Bapak Dr. Sa'dullah. Filosofi belajar merdeka itu yang bagaimana? Monggo Bapak Dr. Sa'dullah.
Terima kasih Pak Saifuddin. Sesuai dengan judul itu memang ini memberikan satu wadah tentang Kampus Merdeka dan Merdeka Belajar. Menjadi pribadi sebagai proses individuasi itu sesungguhnya itu otonomi. Setiap orang itu mempunyai kemampuan untuk mengembangkan diri. Oleh karena itu seperti yang saya katakan tadi itu rational and moral ultimacy itu ada pada manusia dan itu harusnya itu dipaksakan, artinya dijalankan dengan konsep mukallaf. Oleh karenanya ada satu perjalanan secara psikologis ketika masih anak-anak sampai pada buluk dan seterusnya. Itu ketika sudah balik, akil balik itu ada pada diri sendiri. Jadi berbicara mengenai merdeka di situ konsep kita dalam Islam itu sudah lama itu. Jadi kata-kata Iqra bismi rabbikal ladzi khalaq itu menunjukkan bahwa manusia itu mempunyai kewenangan penuh untuk belajar dan membaca. Tetapi di situ ada rambu-rambunya. Bismi rabbikal ladzi khalaq. Artinya dalam zona, dalam ranah yang di situ Tuhan itu meridhoi. Oleh karena itu dengan kata-kata bismi rabbikal ladzi khalaq. Terima kasih.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Dr. Sa'dullah. And I could infer the two sessions from Prof. Dr. Teguh and from Dr. Sa'dullah is that current literacy skills are very important for us as either as educators and as students. Besides that, vertical relationship to Allah, our God, is the basis for our successful education. Those are the inference for the plenary session, the third. And now for the last time, I would like to remind for all participants to make the question list that has been given by the committee. And tolong bisa diisi daftar presensi yang sudah dibagikan oleh panitia. Dan yang kedua, mohon semua partisipan and also for all speakers to activate the video because we are going to have a screenshot for our video ya. Mohon semua partisipan baik speaker maupun partisipan untuk mengaktifkan video masing-masing karena akan dilakukan sesi screenshot. Silakan. Silakan panitia. Done? Okay. Okay. The first one we come count down. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Shoot. Okay. The second using our thumb or freestyle ya. Okay. I count. Also count down. Freestyle. 3, 2, 1. Shoot. Okay, done. Thank you. Terima kasih untuk semuanya. And the last one, as the closing statement, I apologize for many mistakes that I have done. And thank you very much for all speakers and also for all participants for your participation today. Hopefully it is blessed by Allah and advantageous for all. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And the last one we would like to remind you to for the parallel speakers, please be on time to join the parallel session. Silakan dibuka untuk para pembicara di parallel session untuk bisa tepat waktu dalam mengikuti kelas paralel. Sudah dibagikan di masing-masing kelas ya. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Excuse me, the moderator. Uh, uh, Thank you for the all keynote speaker. Thank you for the all participants. Before the session close, Mr. Professor Dr. Teguh Budiharso would like to say hello to all the keynote speaker from Turkey, Mr. Bulent Tarman, and from India, Mr. Ramesh Kumar. From Mr. Professor Dr. Teguh Budiharso, floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak Haryanto. My own appreciation will go to my best colleague from Turkey, Professor Bulent Tarman. Thank you, Prof. Tarman.
Thank you. Thank you for your.
And next, my colleagues from India, Dr. Ramesh Kumar. I would like, on behalf of the committee and also of myself, thank you so much for your sincere appreciation, sincere collaboration in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The last, because this webinar will continue expectfully every year, then we would like to share with you again if the next webinar will be conducted. From my own, thank you very much. My mistake, please apologize my mistake. And again, thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Inshallah, see you next.
Thank you, Mr. Haryanto.
You're welcome, Mr. Prof. Teguh Budiharso. And this is the last session for all participants and also all the keynote speaker. The next session will be for the parallel session and goes to all the presenter to go and to present your topic. We are going to have the parallel session on the next session. It is on 1:30 p.m. It is on 1:30 p.m. So please stay standby on our parallel session only for the presenter. Thank you so much for all participation. Really sorry for making any inconvenience. Me, Haryanto Hari, have a nice day. Thank you so much for Mr. Bulent Tarman, for Mr. Ramesh Kumar and Professor Dr. Teguh Budiharso, my rector, Mr. Asa'idi, and my dean, Mr. Mahari. Thanks anyway. Have a nice day. See you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Terus karyo tataning bumi, terus bekerja membangun negeri. Jepara, sebuah surga yang terukir indah di tanah Jawa. Setiap sudut tempat ini menyimpan cerita sejarah perjuangan kemerdekaan bagi Indonesia. Mewariskan semangat pelopor dalam kesadaran berilmu dan beragama. Universitas Islam Nahdlatul Ulama Jepara, sebuah kampus bukti perjuangan para ulama, para kiai, dan warga Nadlin Jepara. Lahir sejak 7 Agustus 1991, kami bermula dari kemandirian. UNISNU, STIENU, dan STTDNU, sosok awal kami yang penuh perjuangan. Bertumbuh dan mendewasakan diri sampai akhirnya menjawab panggilan. Kami, UNISNU, bersatu untuk saling melengkapi dan melawan keterbatasan. Dalam mempersiapkan diri untuk bersaing di era globalisasi, sudah menjadi kewajiban institusi untuk terus membarui sistem pendidikan. Namun, kunci keberhasilan bukan hanya sekedar edukasi yang tinggi, pengetahuan perlu berkolaborasi dengan iman dan takwa sebagai tumpuan. UNISNU konsisten dalam pengembangan mutu, melaksanakan pembelajaran yang terbuka akan inovasi teknologi, melandasi perubahan dengan nilai-nilai Islami. Dibekali oleh para pendidik yang berintelektual dan berdedikasi, mahasiswa dibentuk dengan jiwa progresif dengan pola pikir penuh toleransi. Mahasiswa aktif berkontribusi dalam unit-unit kegiatan mandiri, melengkapi pengetahuan dengan inisiatif latihan pribadi, menghasilkan lulusan yang terampil, disiplin, dan berintegritas ilahi, siap menjadi akademisi yang berani berkompetisi. Kami akan terus menjaga kepercayaan umat, mengarahkan insan pilihan untuk belajar berdampak bagi masyarakat. Kreativitas terus dilatih dengan kebebasan berimajinasi, namun tetap beriman dalam eksplorasi studi. Bijaksana dalam mengambil keputusan dan jernih menjalani kehidupan. Universitas Islam Nahdlatul Ulama Jepara, cendekia dan berakhlakul karimah. Kampus yang mengabdi pada negeri, bernafaskan nilai-nilai Islam Ahlus Sunnah